All right. Hey, what's up, everybody watching this video? I'm back with another DDR video, back with another DDR interview. And you know, if you follow my solo videos and my interviews, you heard me bring up Phrekwenci a lot. So me and Donna have been good friends for a really long time. Donna is like a big part of not only my story in DDR, but like New York City story in DDR, and really DDR in general, not even a regional thing or like an East Coast thing. Donna is like a big reason why DDR blew up in the early 2000s. So I have Don here with me. So yeah, let's just get started and let everybody know, who you are, introduce yourself, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure. Hi. So my name's Don, also known as Phrekwenci in the gaming communities, and I started playing DDR back in 2002 or so, maybe a little earlier than that. I guess we'll go into that a little bit. Started in Long Island, and then got introduced to DDR in the city, a lot of the folks that were out there, a lot of the traveling that happened out there, and the forums, which were a big part of the whole thing. And then I did a lot of work trying to get DDR to become big in lots of different ways, whether it be through the media or events and things of that nature. And I think that's the quick story of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll save it for a little. We'll
Okay.
save it for later. So, like, how, why, when did you get into DDR, and like which arcades, like?
Okay.
Because just for anybody who doesn't know, Don is, for the most part, he was a Long Island DDR player, but like Long Island and New York are like this. You can't really talk about one without the other. So, yeah, how did you get into DDR?
All right. So it's funny that you asked that question because I saw the DDR NYC video this morning. Okay. Mm-hmm. And in that video, Anthony pops off about Dead or Alive in that video. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
I was a competitive Dead or Alive player back in like 2001.
Did you tell me? I think, maybe you told me this and I forgot. Okay, yeah.
I don't know if I told anybody because it ended up being like the end of Dead or Alive for me when I started DDR. So basically when I was playing Dead or Alive, and I agree with folks now about it being like a rock, paper, scissors game. I totally agree with that statement back then. But at the time, I was really interested in that game, mostly because of the kind of like unique moves and combo system in particular. I used to love fighting games, and I kind of still do, but one of the things that really annoyed me was that when I would like combo someone and pop them in the air, a lot of combos like wouldn't work. Like when you try to hit them out of the air, they would just like whiff.
Oh, like in 2D fighting games?
Exactly, yeah. So in Dead or Alive 2, which is where I kind of started popping it off, that's where I was like, oh, I can actually hit this person in the air with practically any move that I want.
Yeah.
So I got excited about that, played that a lot, and then I got really into the tag version of that game. Mm-hmm. The tag version of that game is very much like you start a combo, you hit the tag button, and the player immediately switches in, and you could do like 15, 16, even almost to 20 hit combos doing this tag back and forth, and it's really like exciting to do that because you can make stuff up on the fly. I used to have a Helena Hayabusa team, and I used to be able to do the Izuna drop off of every counter. So I competed in a couple of Dead or Alive tournaments. In fact, one of the ones that I did in Long Island was the first time I met L.I. Joe. So L.I. Joe and his like crew in Long Island had like this video game tournament, and L.I. Joe was basically like the boss character. Basically, everyone fought in the tournament, and then whoever the winner was would fight L.I. Joe, and if you won against L.I. Joe, then you win the tournament, right? So Dead or Alive was one of those things, and the only game that Joe lost in was Dead or Alive because I was there and I beat him in it. Mm-hmm. I took that all the way down to like the East Coast and all this other stuff. So moving forward, getting to the actual DDR part, I was into DDR. My friend Jen Tomo, who was also from Long Island, would introduce me to the game, but I was just like, I don't know if it's for me. But eventually, I go with my friends. I think Jen might have been there to a tournament for Dead or Alive in Barcode. In Times Square. So we go to Barcode in Times Square. It was for Dead or Alive 3, which just came out. I was practicing, at home with the one that I had. And the interesting thing between DDR 2 and DDR 3 was that the button scheme changed between DOA 2 and DOA 3. So the default scheme changed. So I always wanted to play with DOA 2 because I've been playing that for years. At that tournament, first off, it was a team tournament, so you had to have 5 characters. And then the second thing was that you couldn't change your buttons. You were not allowed to change your buttons. And I didn't find out until I got there. It was like, that's dumb. And I got so pissed when I found out that you couldn't change the buttons that I just forfeited the first match. And I told the organizers, I said, look, if you let me change my buttons, I will beat your first player person like this, no problem. No problem. I was that cocky. Now, they wouldn't let me fucking do it. But I was so pissed at that thing that I was like, fuck it. Let me go to another arcade. And that's when I went to Broadway City for the first time.
Oh, wow.
And I went to Broadway City that day with my friends. And because they would play DDR, I also was like, oh, let me try because we're here, you know, and whatever. And that was kind of like where the start was for me, was that basically I got fed up at a Dead or Alive tournament and ended up at Broadway City to like hang out with friends and play DDR there. That eventually grew into being a regular at FYE in Long Island.
I was gonna ask, okay.
And I can pause there if you want for.
No. I want to go into like I didn't know that that's how you got into DDR, but yeah, I was interested in like how you started playing back at home in Long Island.
Well, I guess the fun thing is that I never played at home. Right, I always played in the arcades. I never had a pad at home. And every time I tried it, it always felt wrong. But back in Long Island, we would go to FYE and play over there. FYE was an absolute staple when it came to music games in Long Island because of Ted. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
And the first thing I actually was playing over there was Para. Okay. And I like that because it was very freestyle oriented, right? Like you're not really having to like specifically step on a particular arrow on a particular time. You can just kind of wave your arm or wave your body to hit the arrows, basically, more or less. So that was really fun for me. Dance Maniac, similar kind of thing. But DDR was more like technical. So it took me a little while to like feel comfortable with it. And in fact, I guess I was lying about playing in a pad because I did like practice ecstasy on basic for a while, just to like feel what that was supposed to be like before hitting an arcade. But eventually, I just got into it, and eventually Fun Zone, which is a place that I think I was working there at the time. They finally got their own DDR machine. It was a fifth mix. And once the place that I was working got a DDR machine, it was over. It was absolutely over.
I can't remember if I went to Fun Zone before. I did go to an arcade one time, and it was like you walked in, and as soon as you walked in, the first thing you saw was like a DDR machine, like in the center of the like arcade. Was that Fun Zone, or was it like?
Fun Zone's DDR machine moved a couple of times. There was definitely a time where if you walked in, it was straight ahead. In fact, there was like an air hockey table, and then beyond the air hockey table, there was the DDR machine. And there's a video actually of me freestyling a whole bunch of songs on my YouTube channel. And one of those songs, L.I. Joe, pops in to the video. Well, I think it's Eversnow. I'm like freestyling Eversnow, and he's like pops in and he just starts feeling me up during the video. It's hilarious. But that's when, that was one of the times that the DDR machine was straight on. When it first got there, it was like on the right-hand side when you walked in. And then eventually, they made like an alcove at Fun Zone, where they put the DDR machine in there and some other, like, I guess, other large, noisy arcade games. But it moved a couple of times in there.
I don't remember maybe that's what Fun Zone was. This, the place that I'm thinking of, it was the first time I played the Spekio at it. We'll talk about Spekio a little bit later, but like, I remember going there one time. You might have taken us there, and then like the Extreme machine had memory card slots, so that's where I played the Spekio at it. But I don't know if that was Fun Zone. But
no, I don't think that would have been Fun Zone. The only place that I knew that had memory card slots, I'm pretty sure FYE did.
FYE did.
And then I think there was the random machine, this is probably wrong, I'm going to say it anyway. There was a machine in Bayville that like no one knew about. Mm-hmm. And I think randomly it had memory card slots, but there's no way that we would have taken you up there because it's
okay.
Out in the boondocks. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, so you started playing at FYE, and this was during the third mix era, or like the
no,
fifth mix?
No, this is basically like fifth mix.
Oh, like solidly fifth mix.
Yeah, it's pretty solid fifth mix. I just kind of missed fourth mix overall. It was basically fifth mix, just more or less came out from what I understand.
So like Long Island had Max. Long Island had DDRMAX, so Long Island also got fourth mix too. Like a lot of the arcades and FYE had fourth mix.
I think yes. I think FYE did have fourth mix at a time, but it was not as popular because we had fifth mix. And then I remember the day that sixth mix was there. In fact, we were there the first opening time, and I remember Ted coming up and being like, "Hey, I got a surprise for you."
All right, save that for we'll get into.
Okay, go ahead.
I just find that interesting. Like with New York, we always I'd say in all my videos we skipped. Even Sean confirmed that we didn't even have second mix. We got third mix, which second mix was baked into. So
yeah.
So you were playing during fifth mix, and so tell me about. I kind of know the story of this, not the story, but I know the overall spread of this, but the player base at around the time of fifth mix when you started playing.
Yeah, so the player base that I knew back then in Long Island was DRZ. That was, that was basically the folks that were playing. In fact, they were very interested in Para at the time as well. They were doing a lot of freestyle that I knew of. And then Airwalker was also there at FYE. And Airwalker was very good at the game. In fact, it was more apparent that he was good when six mix came because everyone's trying to get the AA for Max 300 at this time, and everyone's playing Freckles except for Airwalker. Airwalker is playing other songs that were fairly easy also, but he was also AAing those to get Max 300 to play it and whatever. So that was pretty cool. Past that, you had Andrew Samba, who worked at FYE, I think, at the time. So he was playing, Guitar Hero, Guitar Freak, and Dance Maniacs and the other things and that were in there. Do
you remember a guy I used to play with him at Green Acres Mall, Strider? His nickname was Strider. I don't remember his actual name.
I remember a guy named Ian, and I don't remember if his handle was Strider. He was a
really
short guy, and he used to have the wing that used to come out like this when he played. Was that the guy?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, because there was the best guy from Green Acres Mall was this guy named Ian, and we used to always say that he was flying away because when he would play, he would have this whole big arm that would swing out like this. I don't know if it was Strider or not. But yeah, for Green Acres, you had Wilfred at Green Acres, who's been in the game for a long time.
Oh, I know you're talking about the tall guy, black.
Yeah. He's been around forever.
Okay.
So Wilfred was there, and yeah, Strider. I feel like I know who you're talking about, but it's very vague to me.
He was kind of heavy set. I think he was Hispanic, and for fifth mix, he was really good. He was pretty good for fifth mix.
Yeah, and then you had Spekio. We mentioned Spekio there. He was there, doing his thing as well. But the interesting thing about all of those folks is that there was a cap about how good everybody really was. And it only became noticeable when I drove Big Matt over to FYE. So I drove Big Matt over to FYE, and I think it was with other folks too. I'm sure Vicky was there, so Vicky was also a big deal in terms of getting me introduced to NYC DDR. But I drove Big Matt to FYE. I'll never forget this day. We put him on, I think it was either the fifth mix or the fourth mix, whatever. It was Dropout. He's playing Dropout, and we're all watching him, including Ted. And I think he full comboed it, double eight it, something like that. And no one had seen that before. Nobody, right? And that showed you what the difference was from where we were in Long Island to what New York City was doing. And it's very similar when you think about the fighting game community, what was going on outside of Chinatown Fair and what was going on inside of Chinatown Fair.
Yeah.
Right? It's a very different dichotomy where you hit a brick wall until you find real competition in New York City. And that's kind of what happened with the DDR situation is once we started kind of assimilating New York City into Long Island DDR, everyone started leveling up.
Yeah. So what about that guy Goku? He was like one of the him and Airwalker Matt were like neck and neck, or like how did that play out?
I mean, yeah, from the other videos, it's similar. Is like he was like the villain basically overall. In speaking about that stuff, I don't think we ever really had beef personally. Yeah. I think he was just mostly kind of annoyed about New York City coming in and taking his turf and obviously being better than him constantly. That was probably what was going on. I barely remember what was going on in the South Shore Bimani forums.
Was that the name of the forums? Okay, I couldn't remember. Okay.
Yeah. So I barely remember what was going on there in terms of like flame wars and shit that was going down. But I know that like he made himself out to be the villain more or less. His team, I don't think really agreed with all that. You know, you had like Goten, was it Goten? I guess, and then Trunks and all those other folks that like, you know, wanted to be part of a team, but also was like, this guy's a little out of control. I felt like everyone was a little uneasy about it, but yeah, I think it was basically Goku and Airwalker basically being the best in Long Island. Spekio probably up there as well. I think Spekio, in terms of his ability, was more. I would say it would be even closer to what like Jeff Sarcastic Mofo in terms of his skill, meaning that like he's very good at standards or low maniacs or whatever you want to call them. Those songs wouldn't be so good at something more technical, right? That's when he kind of would be a little bit more clear in terms of like, who would be better. I remember in particular there was a tournament with Spekio and Deshaun, and Spekio picks Pink Dinosaur on Deshaun, thinking like, oh, Deshaun's never seen this before. That doesn't matter for Pink Dinosaur. It's just 8 notes. You're not gonna show him anything that he technically hasn't seen before.
Yeah. What about as somebody from New York City, I used to hear about Jillian's all the time. Was like that a prominent arcade, or was it just like kind of a mainstay?
So Jillian's had a pump machine, didn't have a DDR machine.
Oh, okay, interesting.
I shouldn't say that. The Jillian's that was in Farmingdale had a DDR1, and it barely had any use, of course, on it because there were so many other machines out there. But they had a DDR1 there. But the one in Westbury, which is where everyone was kind of hanging out, had the pump machine. I don't remember which version. I don't follow whatever. But they had a pump machine over there, and there was a separate kind of crew of Long Island people that play pump that would usually go to Westbury. Okay.
Yeah, I used to hear about Jillian's all the time, and I only went there once you had to go there for something, so I was like along for the ride. We stopped at Jillian's. Omni Target was working.
Yep.
We went in for like 2 minutes and left. I don't know if I feel like somebody, I don't know, were you ever working at Jillian's?
I worked at Jillian's very, very early on. For like 4 months, and that's because when I left my job at Fun Zone, which was like 4.5 years, I was like floor supervisor, practically like a manager there. And then I left my job there and was looking for another arcade job because that's all I knew. And I went to Jillian's thinking, oh, okay, well, I'll just try to be a supervisor here. And I was back at the bottom again. And I was like, I can't be at the bottom again. I'm not stimulated here. So, which is where Marty was working as well.
I was going to ask you too about Marty, because a lot of the people you named so far are like technical people, and like, but you leaned into, and we'll talk more about you being a freestyler. And Marty was also,
right.
I don't know if you would say he's kind of a prominent freestyler. He was one of the earlier freestylers in Long Island DDR,
right? I think so. I think what ended up happening there is that Pump lends itself to freestyling.
Yeah. And
because he was part of the Pump folks, I think it's kind of a natural progression to be a freestyle in Pump as opposed to a technical. There were plenty of technical people in Pump for sure, but Marty definitely, in terms of the freestyler, was definitely part of that. And I mean, in terms of also freestyling, Goku was a freestyler. I think actually most of DBDRZ claimed to be freestyle. Airwalker freestyler as well, not just tech. And I'm trying to think if there's anybody else in Long Island in particular that I can think of that was also freestyling. I guess Andrew also played. I think a lot of the people other than Marty that I say that's freestyler also tech folks and could freestyle because it was fun to, but I don't think they were taking it seriously like I was. I think that's accurate.
All All right, so at this point, you're playing Fifth Mix. You have like this community of people. You started playing with Jen, and your nickname is Phrekwenci. So how did you come about getting that nickname?
Yeah, so Phrekwenci is just an AOL screen name, and that came from me being very bored in physics class back in high school. I'm looking at the back of the book, and I'm looking at like, the glossary, and I was playing around with weird screen names that had like different, phoneme combinations, and I looked at the word frequency spelled correctly, and I was like, ooh. If I change this to P and H and this to KW, whatever, that would look really cool.
Okay.
And that became a screen name. I find out later on that folks have told me that they can't spell frequency the right way after seeing my name for so long.
I've definitely misspelled frequency since playing DDR.
Yeah.
Like just being used to writing your
name. Yeah, it's so weird that people have told me that they spell it completely wrong now. Yeah. But that's where the name came from, and it's been, my fighting game handle for a long time. I've since sunset it for the most part because I'm not a competitive gamer as much. But yeah, it was a very well known name for a long time.
Right, and you what you became known for is freestyle. So what made you focus more on freestyle as opposed to getting into tech? Maybe this is an early question because I think the community was kind of figuring itself out in the early days, but were you a dancer before DDR and then that's the route that you decided to take, or was it like Dance Maniacs and Para, or a combination of all that?
Yeah, so I was a dancer before DDR.
Okay.
I was a professional dancer. I used to work for a DJ company for a number of years, and I think it was really kind of being into Para more seriously, if that makes any sense for Para. But being into Para first, being more free with your style of Para before going into the DDR situation, I think felt really good. On top of which, when you first start playing DDR and you look at all these other good people, you're like, oh, I'll never be able to do that. So if I'm going to be able to express myself, maybe it's a better option for me to do the freestyle direction instead. So I think that's kind of what happened there. And I do remember, which actually there is a video of my first freestyle online, which is electro-tuned.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've seen that video before. It's on your, you have it on your channel, right? Yeah.
So electro-tuned, I dressed up as with silver a get-up, and I did the electro-tuned thing, and I forget if I had something in there that was a very interesting I'm going to say climax, but a very interesting part of the song that ties it together. I forget what if Electrotune had that or not. I know other freestyles that people are familiar with of mine do. I forget if Electrotune does. But the funny thing actually about Electrotune is that was a tournament that I did that. I won first place in. Then the following day there was an NYDS tournament, and at that NYDS tournament I tied first place with Julio.
Okay.
And that was the Do Me freestyle he did.
Yeah.
And I did Electrotune on that day as well.
Oh, okay.
So
I don't remember your Electrotune freestyle when we played. I do remember Do Me. That's one of my favorite freestyles from Julio.
Well, that's the thing is Do Me is a really exciting high energy freestyle. Electrotune is not. Electrotune is just doing the robot, and it's not high energy, right? It's so from the perspective of what NYC DDR is all about, it is higher energy. I mean, New York City DDR is all about freestyle and paranoia, unheard of, right? Where we're still trying to find the arrows and dance to them. You guys are just taking it to another level. So that was a big dichotomy that was happening between both areas, I think.
You know what I always found interesting too, from my perspective as somebody who lived in Brooklyn, and I don't really know. This kind of makes sense geographically, but there was more of a relationship between Queens and Tell me again, what's the county? I always forget the counties. The county
Nassau?
Closer to New York City is Nassau.
Nassau, yeah.
So it seemed like Omni Target. I think he actually lived in Queens. There was all the NYDS people, Harmonica. Sora, like because they were closer, it seemed like they were in Long Island more often. You go to NYDS, you would see Long Island people there more often. So there seemed like there was more of a dynamic there. You know?
Yeah, that's 100% accurate. You would get a lot of Queens folks in Long Island all the time. I mean, that attributes to Vicky. So Vicky is one of my best friends for, nearly 25 years now. This is crazy. Who I met through DDRFreak on the forums. She came to Long Island to Fun Zone to play, and said that she was coming, and then we connected that way. And then she took me to play in New York City. I remember going on the subway for the first time and being like, whoa, this is crazy, Long Island. It's weird being in Long Island, geographically connected to New York City, and there's a stigma about the New York City subway or just New York City in general for folks that grew up in Long Island.
Okay.
So introducing me to that was a huge big step for me to getting to just learn about the city in general, and then to learn about all of the Queens DDR, because I'm barely in Brooklyn, but all the Queens DDR that was happening. You had obviously NYDS, but you had Flushing Mall had a couple of spots at the time. Karam Cafe, Smiles. Trying to think of anything else that was hanging around that was weird. Because Karam Cafe was weird.
I never heard of that place before.
Karam Cafe?
Yeah.
Karam Cafe had a random fourth mix. It was in a pool hall. It was up the block from Main Street in Flushing. And then Smiles, which I think you were talking with Sean about Smiles. I think it was. And I remember Smiles being a real arcade. Where it was just racing games and all this other stuff, and Smiles had a machine there. But I also used to hear about the original NYDS. I was never there. I went to the newer one, which there's lots of stories about that one too that we can get to.
Yeah, I went to the original one once. My cousin took me and her there one time, and it was I just went the one time, and then they moved. But it was it's the same idea, but they just had DDR machines lined up. 3 or 4 DDR machines and a pump it up machine. And it looked like a really cool place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so you mentioned forums earlier, and it's interesting because that's one of the things that you became known for on DDRFreak.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Long Island forum, but you were on DDRFreak for a while, and then at some point, this is kind of separate and apart from DDR skill level, but through one reason or another, you became a moderator. Now, I was trying to explain this recently to somebody. It might have been Janine, but people respected you if you were a moderator on DDRFreak. In the community, it was just clout. And then it was kind of cringy. Sometimes people would ask to be moderators. And, but you had to be kind of chosen without asking to be a moderator.
Yeah.
From what I remember, we had New York Stargate and Jim the Fly initially for the New York forums.
Yes.
But then there were moderators for non-geographical related things like DDR Chit Chat and gameplay. But at what point did you become a moderator and then also be promoted to an administrator?
Yeah. Okay, so basically you're exactly right. The way it was at DDRFreak was that there was a handful of moderators over hundreds of thousands of people. And it's when you say that, it doesn't sound like a lot today, but back then, in the early 2000s, the DDRFreak forums were larger than the Halo forums at the time. It was one of the top 10 internet communities at the time. It was humongous. Mm-hmm. I think there was 800,000 people by the end of it, by the end of the term. And then you had again, a handful of these moderators. And you're absolutely right in terms of everyone wanted to be a moderator kind of because of that respect. And, I would agree with that in terms of me wanting to do that too. The way that I became moderator had nothing really to do with New York. At the time, I was very into making my own steps through DWI. So Dance with Intensity, you would make steps using that. It was before Stepmania. So you had to code the steps yourself in Notepad. And it's not Stepmania code. This is very much like numpad code.
Yep.
And that was, would take days, weeks, whatever to get something to happen for that. And thank goodness for Kamek was a person who made like a DWI editor.
Really?
It was amazing.
I remember that.
It was great. So it made it really fast to like edit. Anyway, really into that, really into making my own steps. Eventually, like I ended up writing a thesis about it later on, but because of all the activity that I had in the new DDR simulators forum that was added to DDRFreak, what the mods noticed was that, hey, this person's really active in this particular forum. They're answering lots of questions, etc., etc. So that was one of the parts. The other part was that NY Stargate was one of the mods specifically for New York. The other person was Remy. And Remy was from upstate, but then came down and lived in Queens. And we got friendly, and I don't remember how in particular, but we got friendly. And I used to hang out with him and his wife all the time in Astoria. And we got friendly, so I had what you would call like an in.
Yeah.
Basically, a person on the inside that could tell me, hey, what's going on. And I remember this specifically because Remy pinged me one night and said, hey, it's happening. I said, what do you mean it's happening? He says, people are talking about making you a mod for the simulator forum. I was like, oh shit. So very excited about that. So I'm kind of like keeping my cool, composure, whatever. And over the next couple of days, it happens, right? I'm finally a moderator, and you get access to the moderator forum that you can see all of like historical shit that's going on in there, other things that went down. So that was really exciting for me to like be promoted to this level that kind of automatically gained some respect because I have a new foot color next to my name.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. Eventually, because New York is New York, they basically put any moderator that was associated with New York in New York. So we had 4 moderators. Had Stargate, Remy, myself, and Deshaun. Yeah. So all 4 of us were there. And yeah, that was the moderator stuff. I think administrator happened because I think in the same way that Spike happened. So Spike was like the person that everyone saw like as the overseer of all the forums. Like he was doing general discussion and you know help and all the other stuff. And basically what happened was Spike.
Damn, you said Spike. You just threw me.
I'm taking you back.
Yeah, because I remember I didn't mean to like interrupt.
No, go ahead.
But like I just remember like every time I would load up DDRFreak, there would be an article and like. I feel like more often than not, he would be the one that posted the article. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
So Spike was the one that was most frequent. And in fact, I think, you know, he was always the one. There was always this big thing about the number of posts you always had at DDRFreak. And everyone was trying to get the most posts ever and be on that top list or whatever. I eventually won. But Spike was the guy who had like, I don't know, 5 digits worth of posts at some point. So he was very active, very into the forums. He was, you know, locking threads and giving points, and everyone knew what he was doing. Eventually, he kind of sunsets. And so many of the other moderators at this point are also sunsetting a little bit just because of life, just overall. So it's kind of a new wave that's coming in that I'm now being included in. And basically, there was this whole idea of like, okay, we're going to, you know, we're not going to remove these folks from the list, but we're just going to add new folks to other forums. So I, as an example, was added to DDR, the general forum. I was added to, I think, the help forum as well, and a couple of other ones that, again, were things that, you know, needed support. And I think because of all that sunsetting and that reorganization, I became an admin then. I think that's what happened.
Were you talking to J-Dog at this time? Like you had like a good rapport with J-Dog? And
kind of. I mean, he was always set back in the whole thing. And actually, speaking of J-Dog, I remember the day that I became moderator because he reached out to me on AIM. And he was like, hey, you know, are you interested in being a moderator? I'm like, absolutely. It's okay. It's time. But yeah, you know, there was a few admins at the time. I think Iguana Girl was already an admin.
Oh my god. Damn, I forgot about that name too. Okay, yeah.
I think she was already an admin. I remember Junior Asparagus was an admin as well. Blue was the technical admin. So he was the one that was behind the scenes with the server, et cetera, that stuff. But eventually Rampage took over that because he was an IT person. So Rampage took that over. And side note, Rampage, Remy, and I started a website called Extra Stage. Do you remember that?
No.
Okay. So Extra Stage was trying to like be a separate forum from DDR. I don't remember exactly why. I think we were trying to start the contributor model there, maybe? Yes, I think that's what was happening. Basically, I think we saw in the community that people were like writing articles, and we were like, hey, we want to like feature these articles on, you know, a website. But the problem was that DDRFreak really didn't have the support for that. So we were going to try that out at Extra Stage. Extra Stage ended up flopping after a few months, but we were able to get the contributor model into DDRFreak. So a normal user would be able to post an article. If the article was accepted after a review from other moderators and contributors, we would give them a new title called contributor, and their article will be posted inside of DDRFreak.
Okay.
We would also do that at Bimani Style, because I was an admin also at Bimani Style.
Bimani Style,
yeah. So that got moved over there as well, and there was a contributor model that happened there too. So yeah.
I forgot about Bimani Style because I was gonna ask you about like the DWI Stepmania, DDR East Invasion and stuff.
Yeah.
But Bimani Style was also.
I was less involved. Yeah, I was less involved in Bimani Style. It was a little bit more rambunctious over there.
It seemed kind of in some ways pretentious because it seemed. Correct me if I'm wrong. My memory may be a little hazy on this, but it seemed like it kind of catered a little bit to 2DX.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it was that, and then like my perception of it was like, you know, if you're a 2DX player, you're like, you know, you're a 2DX player, like, and so that was kind of the vibe that happened at Bimani Style. But they did have a lot of. I remember them having eventually a lot of Simfiles.
Yes.
But I do remember DWI and the DDR East Invasion Tournaments contest that they would do. For anybody who doesn't know, this website called DDR East Invasion would make this contest called Tournaments, so people could submit their, we call them DWI files, because back then like Don says, that meaning it didn't exist, and you know there was a lot of leeway for like BPM inconsistencies, and like because everything was done by hand. So like I know people who play now probably will look at a Tournaments folder and be like, this is crappy, how can anybody play this? But back then it was like we didn't have anything, and then somebody would like do like a Final Fantasy Tactics theme song on Stepmania, and you'd be like, oh crap, I can play like my favorite RPG theme song in DWI. So yeah, exactly. And the tournament stuff was really cool because it wasn't just a tournament of you playing the game, it was a tournament of you artistically creating the steps for it. And there's a lot that goes into that in terms of like trying to match the BPM. Again, this is all before Stepmania, so you didn't have the tools to do this stuff. So even just matching the BPM was you and another tool tapping it out to the beat to try to figure out what the BPM is, to put it on the song, to try it out, see if it's on or off or whatever. And adding, you know, BPM changes and stops and stuff like that. And I believe toward the end, maybe the last couple of tournaments or so, I think is when they started introducing the Stepmania stuff, because there were like some hacks. So there were a couple of songs in the tournaments that were made that as you played them, it would get to a certain part of the song, and then all the steps that are coming would completely change. No, I don't remember this.
Oh my god, yeah. Basically, it was some hack with the reverse BPM. Mm-hmm. Basically, if you got to a point where there was a reverse BPM, it would like jump to another part of the song entirely. I think that's how it worked. And yeah, that was wild because you would see steps coming and they were not the steps you were about to hit. And it was really, really crazy. Oh. So that was, I think it was only available in Stepmania just because of the way that Stepmania worked. I don't think DWI would have recognized the negative BPM, or maybe it did. I don't remember. But I remember that in particular, seeing those charts being complete hacks to what the simulators were doing. But those were fun. Deshaun also participated in that, had a couple of songs. In fact, I think his Chemical Plant.
The Sonic theme song?
Yeah, Chemical Plant that he submitted. We joke about it because the whole thing is yellow. It's completely offbeat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the whole thing's completely offbeat. If you put it on little, the whole thing's gone. which is kind of funny. But yeah, that was fun. Definitely fun. And trying to think if there's anything else part of that. No, yeah, that's all I remember of it.
Yeah, I know that there were in the beginning days there were people who like DWI was like the best simulator. But then you had Flash Revolution.
Yeah.
You had what was the other one? There were a couple other ones, but it was DWI Flash Revolution, and there was a third one, and I can't remember what it was called. But the light reduplication, that was the other one.
Oh God.
Yeah. So these are all like they all work the same way.
Yeah.
But DWI wound up being the closest to like DDR, but then when they made Stepmania, DWI kind of faded out. But like not in a bad way. It's just that Stepmania was better. It was just like better overall, you know.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the vibe of Fifth Mix from your perspective and like Long Island, and also just the DDR community in general. Because I feel like this was so early during the beginning of DDR, so like it wasn't solidified. Like I said earlier, if you were going to be a freestyler, or you were going to be a person that was into tech, or you just played and maybe you stealthed a couple songs, or maybe you didn't dance but you spun as much as you could. Mm-hmm. And to me, that was always so fun to think back on like that era. So like what are your thoughts on like the Fifth Mix time where things weren't so defined and people were still learning the game?
I'll tell you what, it's hard to remember because I think that I was just kind of in my own world then. Mm-hmm. Much of my involvement of looking at a community started probably at Seventh Mix, realistically speaking. Like I that's when I really was looking around the ecosystem and going, this is what's happening. And this is just only in 2002 because Seventh Mix is out, I think it must be at the end of 2002, right? Because that's when Sportsworld was? Was that right?
It was Seventh Mix. 2002 was a very quick year for DDR because keep in mind, Extreme came out in December of 2002. In the beginning of 2002, we were playing Fifth Mix. So at some point, I don't know the dates, but at some point it went from Fifth Mix. Maybe Fifth Mix was like the January 2002.
Yeah.
To Max.
Right.
To Max 2.
Right.
And then in December, and Max 2, like I'm going to talk about this in a little bit, but it just felt like a lifetime's worth of DDR because of the song selection. Yes. But it couldn't have been more than a few months. But to me, it felt like years.
It felt like years. That's right. Because I mean, it feels like years, especially now because the time that's spent between mixes that was wild. But yeah, I guess that makes sense from Fifth Mix to Seventh Mix all being the same stupid freaking year is wild. But yeah, that Fifth Mix time was, just thinking about myself personally, is just like I'm just trying to learn and meet people because I'm excited about this game and I want to find other people who are excited about this game and I want to learn from them. I want to get better as best as I feel like I can. And again, I was never really a tech person. There's been some points in time that I was like trying to do standard stuff, but generally speaking, I just wanted to have fun and meet people. Mm-hmm. And eventually, and I guess that talks a little bit about the forums, but also about other stuff that I've done, is I became like somehow a leader in all of this stuff, not from a technical side, but from a community organizational side.
Right.
But of course that happens after 2002. But yeah, it's just me being a part of the community for the first year and seeing different directions that we could take, because I think you're right, like where freestyle was back then was a lot more popular than it ever really was. Right? I think that was really the peak. I mean, that's when you had videos of California, like DJ 8-Ball and there's other names that Melby and Leroy and the guy who did Healing Vision and Era. I don't remember his name. I remember those ones in particular that I was like, it's an Asian guy. I don't remember his name though. But seeing those videos also being very inspired by that stuff, like Synchronized Love, that duet that DJ 8-Ball did, was like, very important.
I was going to ask you who your influences were before you got more involved in who your freestyle influences.
like I said, it's that Asian guy that I don't remember his name. That you would find on DDRFreak. It would be like, I'm assuming that it would be like a video from 2000, 2001, and he did Healing Vision and Era. He did freestyles to those two things, and they were very good. And that was the style that I felt was like closest to mine at the time, because again, for me, I was just basically doing a whole bunch of popping for my stuff. It was just robot popping. That was my thing, because it felt more comfortable than the higher energy stuff to me. Yeah.
Okay. It's funny, like jumping ahead, but we're gonna talk about Digital Life later on. But I was looking at Digital Life videos, and Mel B was in 2006 Digital Life. I was like, y'all don't remember that? What?
Yes.
That's crazy. The later Digital Lives were kind of they were a little bit more exciting than I remember. Like, and Mel B was from what I remember, before my time. Like, he was like a freestyler from California. That was when I played, from what I remember, that was like the mecca of DDR. And he was like a freestyler from California.
Yeah.
And so, like, seeing him in 2006, I was like, I don't remember that, but it was a long time ago.
Yeah, he was there. He was definitely there.
When did the Tour de Dance happen? Was that Fifth Mix? Or was that a little bit later?
That should have been later.
Okay, all right. I was gonna. It ties into my previous question of like just doing things because you love DDR and not just being tech or freestyle.
Yeah.
But let's get into that then. Even though it's a little bit later. So like.
Well, I think it's still 2002. I think it's still 2002.
It would have to be because
the Extreme wasn't around for that for sure.
Okay, so it was either Fifth Mix or Max 2.
In fact, I remember the first place we played had a 6 mix.
Okay.
So it was around toward the end of 2002.
So from the way that I remember it, like this is like one of like 30 to 50 things that people in our area and people around the country probably just did. We just did DDR stuff. It wasn't just like I'm going to try to AAA this or I'm going to make a freestyle. There was so many different ways to play. So if I remember correctly, you, Jen, Kunal was a DDR play, and Elliot, yeah. The four of you decided to do a thing where you guys were gonna play on like either every DDR machine in like
Lower New York.
Lower New York, okay. In a matter of like a 12 or 24 hour period.
It was 14 hours, almost 15 hours.
For like, and like just to be clear, like this was just because you wanted to.
Correct. Yeah, correct. So the story basically is that we were all four of us were very close in terms of being friends, and we were kind of like, hey, wouldn't it be cool to to visit every single DDR machine in Lower New York in one day? Like, is that even possible? So we planned it out in terms of how we were going to structure it, and basically it all came down to the fact that the city arcades were open later than any arcades would have been in Long Island. Right, so that was very clear in terms of how we were going to go ahead and do this thing, where we would go all the way out east. I shouldn't say all the way out east, but we went out pretty far east in Long Island to Sports Plus in Long Island, and that's where the 6 mix was. And we got there literally at opening at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. And the basically the idea is that we were going to all four of us were going to play a set. So 2 of us play together, another 2 play together, get in the car, get out. So that's what happened. So Sportsworld was one of the places. Then I think the next place probably was FYE because of moving out east. But essentially we hit, I would say probably nearly 20 places over that course of that day, where it got to past midnight. Finally, I think it was at Broadway City where we finally got past midnight. Or maybe it might have been before midnight, because I think we were trying to all do it in one day. I think we might have even gotten to Broadway City like 11:30. But we hit the Bayville location, which was way out of the way. All the stuff in Nassau County at the time that was there, like Fun Zone and stuff like that. And then there was Green Acres Mall, of course. And then there was Fun Station USA, very close to Green Acres Mall. No one went there, but we went there. And then I remember that we parked, I'm pretty sure we were all in Elliot's car. We parked Elliot's car in Hewlett, where he lived, to take the train in to, I think, the city. because I think we drove to all the Queens locations. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we would have driven to all the Queens locations. I don't think it was. We didn't go to Brooklyn. We didn't go to. I don't think
there wasn't a lot going on. It was Coney Island, but like it was.
Well, I'm just. We're trying to hit all the DDR machines. So I don't think we went to Coney Island. I'm pretty sure we didn't. But then we took the train in, and then there were 4 places. I'm pretty sure that we hit in Manhattan, which would have been Laser Park for sure, Chinatown for sure, Broadway City, and I'm sure there was one more, and I don't remember which one it was. Barcode was not around any longer. I don't think Port Authority had it yet. It might have, but I don't remember.
I mean, Port Authority had DDR for a long time, but it wasn't prominent back then, so it might not have been Port Authority.
Yeah,
the only other arcades were Mars 2112 and Port Authority, and Mars 2112 was also kind of low key.
Yeah, it was low. I mean, we would have tried, and I very much remember it being 4 places in Manhattan that we had to hit, and I even think that we might have done Laser Park, Chinatown, Broadway City. In fact.
Okay.
I think we actually even did that because of logistics or whatever in terms of like timing or something like that. But yeah, regardless, it was successful. We hit all the places that we wanted to hit. We played, and actually Broadway City was a really exciting time because this was a post on the forums that everyone was following, and when we got there, it was a big kind of deal, so much so that people let us skip the line at Broadway City, which was a huge deal.
Yep.
In order for us to play and get in on time, I think before 12 is what happened there.
Yeah.
So with skipping the line Broadway City is no small feat.
Yeah.
So to be able to have that kind of, I guess, respect that this event was going on was awesome.
I was the one the one who let you.
You were the guy?
I was the guy. Because
being the guy.
The way that it was from a person who frequented Broadway City Friday and Saturday, no matter what was going on in my life. I was in the community at this point. Like the community was like my life, and I had already known you. I knew Jen. I'm pretty sure I knew Elliot and Kunal at this time. But I knew what you guys were doing. The thing was that not everybody was not everybody who played DDR was so engulfed in the community, especially at Broadway City, because in Broadway City, if you remember, you had people kind of like us who played but were also kind of from the hood.
Right.
And then you had people who were super nerdy, and then you had people who just played DDR but were just straight not part of the DDRFreak forums.
Right.
And what it was specifically, it was Dre, Darwin, Nate, Nat, and Devon. So that group, they were the freestylers in Broadway City.
Right.
They didn't go on DDRFreak. So Toward the Dance meant absolutely nothing to them.
Right.
So when you guys showed up, y'all made it be known that you wanted to go up because it would have taken you an hour just to play. And they were really mad that you wanted to go. And I was like, no, it's okay. They're going to take my turn. I'm not going to play. And so y'all went up, and I was basically trying to bridge the gap for them, they were just dudes who play DDR versus our DDR community on DDRFreak. But I do remember y'all posting Toward the Dance on DDRFreak, and how it was a build up. It wasn't just y'all posted it the day before you did it. It was just something that you guys were building up to.
Right. Yeah, and I think that was pretty common for anything that we did on DDRFreak. Was there was always a build up. It was never oh, tomorrow I'll be here. That didn't make any sense because you kind of wanted to plan it out anyway.
Yeah.
Whatever you were going to do to get people excited and to join you or whatever. So yeah, but thank you.
Yeah. That's just one of the few things that I just people just did stuff just because we like playing.
Hell yeah.
Which leads me to the lock-ins.
Okay.
FYE Lock-ins. I only went to one lock-in, so let people know exactly what lock-ins were, and then what your experience was with them, why they were so fun. Because I've spoken about lock-ins before, but from somebody who lived in Long Island, who frequented FYE, what were lock-ins and what were they to you?
Lock-in was just a big party for people who like playing music games, more or less. I mean, you play regular video games too, but it's really for the music game people. Mm-hmm. So basically, specifically at FYE, I mean, we tried to have lock-ins in other places, and in fact, there's also a very little known story about another kind of lock-in that I'll talk about, but
okay.
The FYE ones were the ones that were most popular and most well known, and that's because of a couple of reasons. First off, Ted, being, a figurehead of DDR and really, supporting our community. He was the manager at FYE, and this particular FYE, which you folks who are older know that is usually just a, music shop, but
right.
This one happened to have had an arcade in it. And this arcade, being near the food court, was also had its own separate entrance from the parking lot. So Ted would get permission from the mall to have this lock-in, which basically was him shutting the gate toward the food court, but him being able to open the door to let people into the arcade area and to basically play overnight. So the idea was that you would pay somewhere between $10 to $20 to get into the arcade. All the arcade machines were on free play. There would be like pizza and soda, and we would just hang out for hours until the morning,
right?
Basically. And we had a few of them, a handful of them. I think one of them we actually ran a few tournaments at, because what the hell, why not? Mm-hmm. We might have ran tournaments at all of them, but I remember running a couple myself, which in fact, the first lock-in that I remember was where I introduced a tournament style called musical grading. This was on Fifth Mix.
This is like if you have to get at least a B?
Correct.
Yes, I remember that.
Right, so basically on Fifth Mix, you would have basically musical gradings like musical chairs. You would be playing DDR, you could pick any song you want, and you have to get at least a B on it. And once a person picks that song and gets the B, it's like crossed out. So no one else can play that song. So we have to go through all the songs. We have to get B's on all the songs before we go to the A. Then we get A on all the songs. And that's when people start dropping out, because now we're getting hard songs. Now we're getting like For Your Hottest Themes and dropouts and things like that, where, less skilled players who are like forced, because it's nothing but hard songs, are being dropping out. So now we're getting the better of the better players, and now we're done with the A's, and now you have to double A everything.
Yeah.
Right. Now when you're double Aing stuff, like this is Fifth Mix, and like double Aing is like you miss one arrow, you're out, you're done. Yeah. So that was really interesting, but it is also a little bit of the luck of the draw, right? Because it's entirely possible. Sure, you're going to go ahead and like pick the songs that you can double A, but eventually those won't be available anymore. You have to pick something that maybe you'll double A, mm-hmm. And it just so happens that the rotation, you'll get maybe a winner that is an upsetting winner. Who knows out of that? But I just wanted to make events that were interesting. I was so bored of regular tech. Whatever the tech was, either 2 out of 3 or perfects or whatever it was. I was so bored of that I wanted to see more interesting events that you haven't seen before that would, cause some interest that was not, again, just regular tech. So that was like the beginning of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, the two Long Island arcades that I have experience with, which was FYE and Tri-County Flea Market, it was just
yes.
It was, and I purposely didn't bring them up because I'm fairly confident, like as for somebody who didn't live in Long Island, I'm fairly confident that TCF came around like during the Extreme era. Like if
sounds right.
Yeah, I don't think TCF existed. I don't remember you guys. So I remember you guys talking about Jillian's and FYE, and
yep.
I think I remember hearing Bayville, but I don't remember TCF. But like going to TCF and FYE was just like, it was like going to Six Flags if you were a DDR player.
Yes.
Like you go to a Chinatown Fair. Chinatown Fair is like, it has the vibe. Everybody knows the Chinatown Fair vibe. And Broadway City was grand. Broadway City was like Dave and Buster's, but in 2000 is the best way I could put it, right?
Right. But
like, I don't know what it was about FYE. It was just like, it was like that 2000s feeling of like going into an arcade and like getting, like you walk past the Dance Maniacs machine and these people are playing like Street Fighter, Third Strike, and then there's a fifth mix over there and there's a fourth mix over here and there's memory card slots, and the manager is like in tune with DDR, like,
and that's it. So when you look at all those other arcades that are not FYE and Tri-County, those are just arcades to be arcades. That's it, right? And I'll say Chinatown's a little bit different than that. But the rest of those arcades are just there to be arcades, to put arcades in and put machines in, make money and all this stuff. They don't care about the DDR necessarily. They know it's popular, and there's going to be money that goes into that, but that's it. Looking at FYE and Tri-County, and even NYDS, you had managers that were there that cared about those games.
Yeah.
Period. Right? And that's why you got a lot, you got that vibe of feeling at home in those places.
Yeah.
And that's the same vibe that any fighting game player going to Chinatown would get. Right? Because that vibe there was a place that they cared about the fighting games. Right? So that's the difference between all those other, you know, crazy arcades and FYE and Tri-County, where, you know, FYE had Ted and Tri-County had Brian. And they cared about those games and the community to, you know, to have a good experience. And I totally forgot that Tri-County was a thing. Sorry, Brian.
You mentioned earlier, Max, like DDRMAX and Ted saying that like he had something for you guys. So like,
yeah,
from your experience, like how was it to have DDRMAX going from 5th Mix into Max, and like having people like Airwalker Matt and anybody else who was really good at the time, from like a not freestyler perspective, with this being like this new 10-footer that they put in the game?
Freeze hours were weird.
Yeah.
Freeze hours were so weird. Oh my god, we were not ready, dude. I remember going on that machine, and I think I played Ghosts was like my first song that I played there because it sounded cool. Mm-hmm. And the freeze hours and Ghosts are no joke. They are freeze hours. If I remember, I think I'm right when I say that. The freeze hours and Ghosts. If it wasn't Ghosts, it was Ordinary World, which I definitely know is freeze hours in it. Mm-hmm. And I remember stepping on the freeze arrows and not feeling comfortable holding my foot there, which is so weird to say now, you know, 20 years later, going, of course I'm going to hold a freeze arrow. And, well, I say that now, and I'm fast forwarding a whole bunch because the steps that are out now are absolute trash, and they don't really care about where your body is in many of these charts these days, which I'm sure we'll get to at the end of this. Yep. But back then, the step artistry was a lot better, a lot more intentional, and the freeze arrows, where they were placed in those songs back then, were very intentional, very purposeful, and you were meant to do it in this particular way. And eventually, when you figured out the way to do it, it would feel very natural, you know. But it took a minute to feel good.
And it seemed like Max had a small catalog, but it was like a solid catalog. Like it was a good songs, because some of those songs just like, in my opinion, stood the test of time. Like obviously so deep. Like one of that chart is iconic. And then you had you know which chart I really like? Both of the songs, I think they were just called True. Yeah. The radio edit and like the other mix, those were good songs. Ordinary World that was like the poster shot for freeze arrows.
Ordinary World is a great song to learn how to do. But yeah, there was the three kind of big songs that came out of there. Was the So Deep, the Healing Vision Angelic was in there, and then there was one more that was like I just had it in my mind and I forgot which one it was. But there were three songs that were like very significant that came out of that mix.
Flash in the Night. That song was really difficult.
That was difficult, but that was. Was that 6?
Yeah, it was only on 6.
Max. That's right. It was only on Max. But you're actually going back to the limited song list. That was really weird, because from 5th Mix you had songs that were on 1st Mix. In there. So all we were knowing from that, and admittedly I didn't know a lot of DDR up until then, but just learning more about it, it looked like every mix would add, maybe it would take a little bit away, but it would add more songs to the existing set of songs that you would have, right? You had Trip Machine and In Paranoia and Afronova and all those other songs from earlier times on 5th Mix, which was great. Then they give you 6th Mix, and it's like we threw out literally everything, and we're going to give you, 25 songs or whatever it was? I don't remember exactly, but it felt like 25 songs because it didn't feel like a lot. And that was really weird, because you feel like, okay, I've played this for 2 months, 3 months, and I feel I played it all already.
Oh, really?
You know, it's just like, oh, that's it. And you kind of want to go back to 5th Mix because you had more selection, you know.
Didn't they get rid of the foot rating briefly in Max? Also, there was like this...
The Groove Radar.
Yeah,
they had the Groove Radar.
Everybody knew what was what, but like I feel like playing Max, when I would go to fun and games in New Jersey, I knew what was a 9-footer and an 8-footer, but like I think somebody pointed that out to me, and I was like, oh yeah, it's just like that. This radar, like there's no foot rating, and then they brought it back.
Yes, it's really interesting about the difficulty stuff because we've always been very contentious about setting difficulties to songs, right? About this thing really isn't a 7-footer, or this thing really isn't a 9-footer, or whatever it was, right? That happened all the time with us back in the day, and I think the Groove Radar was an attempt, which they kept the Groove Radar at 7th mix past that, and I think in later mixes too. But it's a really, I would say it's actually a pretty good way of getting a little bit better understanding of what's composed in that song. Like, as an example, these days, I try to stay away from stuff that has a lot of air because I'm too old to be jumping around like that. Mm-hmm. So, like, you can't see that by the number of feet or notches that it is these days to know how much air something has or how much jump something has.
Sure.
The Groove Radar does a lot better on, in telling you like what this is going to be composed of as opposed to just a single number. So I think that part actually was pretty good. I'm glad that they brought the feedback in a little bit, just because that radar alone isn't enough, right? You still want to get a little bit of a feeling of like, okay, where these things are, especially in later mixes where you can even sort by that, has been really helpful for me at least.
Yeah, you just remind me of something. It's not related to this interview. I'll probably leave it in the interview anyway, but Janine got me Beat Saber for Christmas.
Hey.
And we were playing a lot in the beginning of the year, but we were having a hard time. Like, first of all, it looks like there's no speed. If there's speed mods, we weren't able to figure out how to implement like speed versus no speed. And we were having a hard time figuring out how difficult this song was. So I think we were like, what were we doing? We were like taking the BPM of the song and like I forgot what it's called, like the swipes per second or swipes per measure. And we were like, I think that this song is something that I could pass based on those two things, but there's got to be a better way to do that. Now you remind me, after this interview, maybe we'll just load it up real quick and you could show us like how to, because Don, we could talk about that later anyway after we go through everything, but Don really got into Beat Saber for a little while.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. The Groove Radar gave a little bit more in depth. I think we were also used to the foot rating.
Definitely.
I never really paid attention to the Groove Radar, but it did give a little bit more nuance to like what this song had.
Yes.
And like I am old when it comes to DDR. I do not like a lot of the new stuff as well. Mm-hmm. But expanding the notches or the feet, I think that was a good idea. Because like I said this in my previous video, PSMO was not a 10-footer.
No.
Like that was not a 10-footer. Mm-hmm. And then So Deep, you would have people who would like,
it's not a 9-footer.
It's not right, because you would have people who maybe would get, back then when under 20 grates was good, they would get like 15 grates on Healing Vision Angelic Mix, which was a 9-footer, and then they would play So Deep, which was a 9-footer, and they would get like a B. So
Tears, I think, was a 9-footer.
And you're like, to me that seems like it was a way easier than So Deep.
Oh, easy by a long shot. I mean, I can knock out Tears, no problem, and I still can't. I don't think I could ever pass So Deep. Mm-hmm. I don't think I could ever pass So Deep. And actually, Tears is funny too in terms of passing. I remember Deshaun playing Tears for the first time in Chinatown, failing it, and then he goes and he's like, "I'm not failing this song," and he gets back up and he like A's it, which is a weird dichotomy about failing a song flat out and then like figuring it out like immediately afterwards. Is like crazy how fast. Some of you folks were figuring shit out. Yeah. Actually, before we move on to other stuff, we were talking about the lock-ins before, and I mentioned that there was another kind of lock-in that I wanted to mention that we didn't talk about, but it's been 20 years, and I'm going to talk about it. There was another kind of lock-in that we called a fix-out.
Where was this?
This was at NYDS.
Okay.
So basically,
okay, go ahead.
So there was a crew of us in Queens, and I was part of that crew because I was dating Jeno at the time, different Jen, and it was like her brother and another couple of Koreans that used to play Pump as well. Steve, Bunny, Will. I think even Omni Target and Candy were probably there. Glory was probably there. A whole bunch of those folks that were just a whole bunch of Queens people, and it was one of the Korean dudes that was working for Mr. Nam.
Yeah.
And he had keys to NYDS. So at one point, we're just all talking and be like, wouldn't it be cool to just like play for free overnight in NYDS, and that's exactly what happened. So we called it a fix out because it was the opposite of a break-in. And yeah, just one night we all go. He's got the key. He opens the gate. We all go in, close the gate behind us, and we just put all the machines on free play, and we played all night.
And Mr. Nam never caught
as far as we know, he never caught us.
Yeah, I remember somebody telling me about that. Maybe Angel might have done that with them, with Bunny and
maybe
one time.
Yeah, because Jeff was probably there, Sora, Leany, all the Queens people.
That's wild, bro.
Yeah, all the Queens people, yeah.
Just breaking into an arcade. And
yeah, I mean, we didn't break anything,
no, yeah.
But like, yeah, we shouldn't have been there, but we did anyway because we were fiending for DDR like we would normally would. But yeah, we did that, which was juvenile shit. But anyway, I wanted to make sure I mentioned that because it was a cute part of the history.
I remember hearing about that. I forgot about it, but I remember hearing about that. All right, so we covered Max, DDR6 mix. And the more I do this series, I'm going on two years, like the more I feel like I recognize that that Max 2, while I wouldn't say it was better than Extreme, it was such a good mix.
It's huge.
Such a good mix. And like, you know, like so many of my stealths came from Max 2. I didn't realize that until Extreme came out. Like Spin the Disc. Things I can't stealth anymore. Spin the Disc. Justify My Love. Not that I stealthed it, but the song stayed. So yeah, 7 Mix just had a really good selection of music, and it was it had difficult stuff, but it just seemed like the last mix that people really put their effort into freestyling. So what's your opinion on 7 Mix overall? Because you did a lot on 7 Mix.
Yeah, so 7th Mix was a great mix in terms of, again, looking at 6 Mix and going, what the hell is this shit? You know, not being ready for, you know, the reduction of songs, the freeze arrows, the really hard 10-footer at the time. Like, all that stuff was really new, but we're getting used to it. And 7th Mix basically was like, all right, we heard you, we're going to bring back some old stuff, we're going to give you the new stuff, and we're basically going to try to make everything right. And I think, putting aside the freestyle for a moment, the battles for unlocking songs, I wish that would come back.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that part of it, which is different from, I think, any other mix that we had, about folks trying to unlock the songs faster and going back and forth and stuff like that. I think there was a lot to it, like in terms of the meta of playing the game. Yeah. That wasn't just playing with arrows. It was like, now we have to unlock songs. We had people like, you know, AA-ing just on light or AAA-ing on light just to get the AAA to unlock the next thing, and the race that was going on. I think that part of it was also something that made it really exciting too. But going to the freestyle stuff, yeah, I think this is where a lot of more of the songs and like just tended to be more like dancey than just being like a song that has arrows to it. So like Spin the Dick's a really good example of that, right? Yeah. Everyone had some silly freestyle to Spin the Disc because it was such a good song for that. And then I think this is also where you had a couple of like the home songs ended up on this mix as well, I think in some cases, and the home songs also were really good. Like, was Kind Lady on there?
Yeah,
it was. Right? On 7th Mix?
The remix was definitely on 7th Mix. I can't remember if the original came from 7th Mix or Max. Remember they had like the ones that were only like challenge steps,
right?
And the Kind Lady had one of those too.
Okay,
I don't remember if the original was from Max.
But yeah, you had Kind Lady would have been on there, obviously. So you had lots of those things that existed on 7th Mix that made it really easy. The non-stop Megamix songs like your Superstar, you know, the Wild Rush, all of those were really fun to play, and the new mods that were in there, right? Boost and Wave and all those things in that you couldn't necessarily pick, right? I think. You weren't able to get them. You had to get them on the Oni, right?
I think Extreme had those.
Right, Extreme had them, but in the Oni course in 7th Mix, I think they were in the Oni course, but you couldn't choose them.
That I don't remember. I remember them being in the trick only course in Extreme. You couldn't choose them in Extreme, but I remember them being in trick.
Okay, so it was in Extreme. So
Yeah.
I got that mixed up. But yeah, yeah, Freestyle was big, obviously, in there, and I guess that leads up a little bit to Sportsworld, right? Is that
we're kind of going in the direction of Sportsworld. The essence of Max 2 is just, it was amazing. I was gonna bring up Spekio, but we spoke about him already. But even though it's not a freestyle edit, there was Kakumei, because you had like, you play your songs, you get a double A, and then you get your chance to try to do Max Unlimited.
Yep.
And I do want to talk more about technical stuff in Max 2, but I do want to emphasize like the freestyle portion of it because of how big of a role it played in general and how big of a role it played for you. But like, so you had Max Unlimited. Everybody knew Max Unlimited is. I've talked about it a bunch of times. But then if you double A Max Unlimited, you got Kakumei, which came from 2DX, so it had that kind of 2DX royalty. So when we unlocked Kakumei, Spekio, this Long Island DDR player, basically made an edit that went
with the 2DX notes,
which was just 16 note streams. Were people playing that a lot in Long Island, or was it just something that we latched onto in New York?
You guys latched onto it, yeah.
I don't know what it was.
I think it was only really meant for you playing on the controller, I think. And I think, yeah, people probably tried playing it, but I don't think there was anyone in New York that could get to that level. Maybe Airwalker, maybe. But yeah, I don't think, and obviously maybe Spekio as well. But I know you guys just latched onto it.
Yeah, to us, we would like worship that edit. It was like this guy from Long Island who I'm saying it's funny now, but like he had something against Deshaun. Like I don't know what it was. Like
it's just a rivalry.
It was like a rivalry thing, but like he made the edit, and we were just like, yo, this edit's crazy. It wasn't anything special. It was just 16 notes. There were really no double steps. There was a couple of crossovers in there that really kind of, if you got up to that part would like drain your stamina. But it was just this wild edit that we all played over and over and over. It was way harder than any 10-footer that was in the game, even in Extreme.
Yeah.
But like for Max 2, specifically but these songs are really good. You got Wild Rush, which is an older song that you freestyled to.
Yes.
From Fourth Mix, you got Drifting Away, which is an amazing song.
Yeah.
I Feel, which was a really good song.
Yes.
You freestyled to Max Unlimited.
Yes.
Spin the Disc, which I saw you freestyle to Spin the Disc. I've seen you and Nugget do it in a tournament, like as a tiebreaker. And you used to stealth spin the disc.
Yes.
So like, am I missing anything? Stay was a good song too. Like there were so many good things in Max 2 when it came to freestyle.
So I also freestyled. There was a tournament in 8 on the Break, which was all freestyle. This particular tournament because you had three.
No tech.
I don't think there was any tech.
That's awesome. Okay.
And you had 3 phases, where like the first phase was you would be given, out of 3 songs, you were able to choose one of them to freestyle to. So they would give you 3 songs, and you would be like, I choose this one. So it's pseudo-random.
Okay.
Right? So you do that pseudo-random, like, improv freestyle. Then there was 2 routines, I think, in this one.
Wow.
And one of them that I did was Leading Cyber. And then the other one that I did was the Least 100 Seconds.
I saw that one. I've seen the Least 100 Seconds.
Yeah, Least 100 Seconds was one I did in there. But that was 8 on the Break. I got second in that tournament. I don't remember who got first.
Nugget.
Probably. Yeah, he would have been my rival for the majority of my freestyle career, which, I have nothing against Nugget personally. I think he brings a lot of energy. But the big thing that many of us freestylers would be critical about for Nugget was that every routine was the same.
Oh, I see.
Everything was the exact same thing. There was no like creativity that we saw in a lot of these things because, from my perspective, all of my stuff, I would have some like either a costume element or a theme to the whole thing to like try to tie it all together, and that felt like it had more like preparation that was involved and more like intention, more purpose behind crafting this performance, as opposed to, again, Nugget just showing up, picking whatever song.
Everything is relative, right? So like,
sure.
I think I'm not saying I agree or disagree with you. I think you were more into by 7 mix. I wasn't really focused on freestyle at all,
right.
But relative to the rest of the freestyle pool, Nugget was amazing.
Yeah.
Because people just, you know, like they would get up in a freestyle tournament and they just would bounce. Like they wouldn't dance. It was just, and they would, you know,
right.
And I'm not trying to make fun of it. I think people were still trying to figure out the game. This is so early in the game, but like along comes this guy from Connecticut and he's
killing it.
I don't know if you would call it, it's not shuffling, but he was just, you know, kind of like pumping. He was like playing Pump It Up on like how people do Pump It Up on DDR. And then you had you who you knew how to really dance, and then you had people like Angel, and you had people like so. With the pool, you, Nugget, Angel, other people who freestyled looked amazing, and I think that's why he got so far. Because
absolutely.
Compared to other people,
it's still the energy part of it. I think that really got to people is that it was the closest thing to dancing that I think anyone's really seeing there. And oftentimes, you know, the judges were just wanted to be excited about the, you know, be engaged about the performance. Yeah. And if the performance is just you playing DDR, that's not exciting to them. Yeah. Right? You had to do something more, and he was always giving that energy that made everyone really excited. So, like, but in the freestyle, I guess, folks that would talk about freestyle, I suppose. Yeah. You know, again, it's nothing against him, and you know, more power to him for winning all those things. But all the effort that we would put into a lot of this stuff, like even like Jing, stealthing the songs, right? I don't think Nugget stealthed anything.
Oh, really?
I don't think so. I think he was looking at arrows a lot of the times and be able to find the right time to spin, to look at the crowd and stuff like that. Yeah. And find the right songs. But I don't think he stealthed anything. Meanwhile, you know, Jing would put in hours learning how to stealth something and making sure that those steps went to the right arrows at the right time. You know, and there's a lot of effort that goes into that stuff. So, I'm sure that Nugget probably stealthed a couple of things in there, or had the general gist of stealthing, but yeah, going back to I guess all the stuff that I did. So the max unlimited freestyle that I did at Sportsworld was just like random because we were filling up time. Same with Spin the Disc, and Spin the Disc one is really funny with Nugget because I think this is the first time I might have met Nugget at the time, or because this is a tournament everyone comes together. It wasn't. I don't think there was a lot of travel then. Maybe Nugget came down for a tournament at some point, but anyway, yeah. So we were just screwing around, and that's when Eagle Boy comes into the shot in the video and rescinds his application to play in the freestyle tournament while Nugget and I are freestyling for the intermission.
Was he like intimidated? Was that it? Or?
Yes. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Basically, he's watching us and he's going, fuck. Like, I can't, there's no way I'm going to even compare to this. So he, in the middle of the video, he comes across the camera. He's like, I'm not in freestyle because of this. God, so that was really funny. But yeah, like there was I Feel, which I did, I think, a Broadway City with like glow sticks or something like that. And then... yeah, Spin the Disc, Max Unlimited were just like random stuff I think that we did.
Was Drifting Away at Sportsworld only, or did you do that before Sportsworld?
I only did it at Sportsworld.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So you had just to pivot real quick before we get into like tournaments. Mm-hmm. You did stealth Spin the Disc, not freestyle.
No. Yes.
What else did you stealth? You had like a short stint with stealthing, or like was it just?
Yeah. I did a short thing at stealthing. Spin the Disc was definitely one of them. The one that I remember the most is in Extreme though. It was Kiss Me All Night Long.
You did stealth that. Yeah.
Yeah. That
you would spin it. You wouldn't even
correct.
Make the same way. I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll skip ahead to that one just because. Actually, you know what? No. Let's talk about Extreme then, because it's important to when Extreme gets introduced.
All right, we'll save that. We'll save that for Extreme.
But yeah, I had a couple of things, not a lot. Like Spin the Disc was definitely one of them. I remember Kiss Me All Night Long was one of them. I think Ordinary World I was trying to, and then I don't think I ever finished it. I tried to do I Feel. I wanted to stealth all of Sorrow because it would have been crazy, but I never actually did it.
Somebody from Long Island was able to stealth Conga Feeling. Was that you, or was that Airwalker? Maybe it
wasn't me. It would have been Airwalker.
I remember going to the lock-in and somebody stealthing Conga, and I was like, oh no, I know who it was. It was Long Island. I'm getting it mixed up. We were in Long Island, but I'm pretty sure it was Jim the Fly for some reason.
Most likely, yeah. That was one of his songs for sure, yeah. That was another song I freestyled at the first freestyle tournament.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so so at this point you're competing in freestyle, like tournaments in Max 2 especially. Like I've seen you, if you go online, I've seen you in, I always forget what it is, if it's Kings of the Coast or Champions of the Coast, and they changed it. I think it was Kings of the Coast when we used to go. I don't remember, but like whatever it was when we used to go. So you were going to Kings of the Coast, and then you went to CSA 1. CSA 1?
2.
You went to 1. I think you did.
I don't think I went to 1.
No?
I think I went to 2.
You went to the one with JSB?
No.
That was 2.
Oh, that was 2?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then no.
I think you went to 1, but I forgot what your freestyle was.
That was Wild Rush. Well, there was 3. So in that one there was a 3. It was a 3-parter again, and I did Do You Remember Me first. Then I did Wild Rush, and then I did Maximum Overdrive, because I think Maximum Overdrive was like the improv, or whatever. But yeah, it was basically an elimination kind of thing. You would have to do the freestyle for the first round. Then you would have to be good enough to get to the second round, and then I think Maximum Overdrive was like some tiebreaker, because I don't think that was like part of the whole thing. But yeah, Do You Remember Me was like basically my throwaway, because I was like, there's no way that I'm not getting to the next round.
Right.
So I was like, let me just learn the general gist of Do You Remember Me? I don't think I stealthed the whole thing, but I remember the general gist, so I did a whole bunch of like popping and waves and stuff like that for that, just to get the hell out of there. But obviously the whole thing that I was looking toward was Wild Rush. This was after Sportsworld, though.
It was after Sportsworld.
That was definitely after Sportsworld, because Sportsworld was the big thing that I guess everyone remembered me by, and that's like.
Were there any other tournaments before we talk about Sportsworld? Were there any other memorable tournaments during Max 2 that you were part of?
Not anything memorable. There was definitely like locals that were probably around that I performed in, that I would have done something like I Feel maybe, or done Electro Tuned again just because, or Congo Feeling. Or actually, Congo Feeling was only the 5th mix, I guess. But yeah, there's nothing else that really comes to mind that I would have done, because I feel like it would have just been me doing Electro Tune, because that was what I was like familiar with. It was easy. Yeah. And yeah, I was preparing Drifting Away and putting it in my pocket for the upcoming, for sure.
So me and Deshaun spoke about Sportsworld. I've spoken about Sportsworld in my previous videos. So the way Sportsworld, from what I remember, Sammy ran the Sportsworld tournament. Me and him spoke about this also in his interview. So he's putting together this tournament. Like, what was your recollection of like how you came about this information, and why did you decide to like put so much time and effort into doing Drifting Away and making like this? Basically wound up being like the freestyle that people know you by. Like, even people who have no idea, who've never met you before, you can go on YouTube comments. Like, I think Drifting Away is on a few different channels where people like just kind of ripped it. Yep. And you'll be like, oh, I love this freestyle. So like, what was it about Sportsworld that you put like so much time and effort into it?
It's hard for me to remember, honestly. I'm sure it was like a post on DDRFreak that occurred, and I think everyone has the same feeling that we don't know why, but we all agreed we were going to go there. Okay. I think that's really what it was. I can't tell you what it, maybe it was the prize in it, because it was significant at the time. But I think we all in the Northeast were like, we're all going to this. And we all just kind of agreed. The thing that was kind of interesting was that in my car, going to Sportsworld, I was driving. I think Vicky was with me, but in the back seat was Deshaun and Jeff. Okay. So we'll get to the freestyle eventually, but I want to make sure I mention this because it's very funny. So we drive to Sportsworld, we participate in Sportsworld. I get first in freestyle, Deshaun gets first in expert tech. Jeff gets second place. He was, I think it was the chef. Gets second place. He almost got first, of course.
In like standard?
In standard, yeah.
Okay.
And then I also won the freaking raffle. I got a graphics card, $400 graphics card. So it was funny because I was basically joking that I would have just backed my truck, my car, up to the loading dock and been load all the first place prizes in here, because practically New York came in and practically swept house, including the raffle. It looked ridiculous, right? I love thinking about that in particular, that we just came in one car and practically took first place the whole way, almost. But anyway, so for the freestyle part of it in particular, I don't think anyone knew what to expect. I remember actually in particular, like Jiffy was there, and Jiffy was becoming a very prominent freestyler in New Jersey, and I remember people telling me that, oh yeah, you know, Jiffy thought that he was gonna, you know, put in the bag no problem, and then realized pretty quickly that this was not a place for you to just do whatever. Because he didn't, I don't think, he might have placed 4th, but he didn't place top 3. Because top 3 was Wicked, and John Avalashi, and then me. So yeah, that's kind of, again, I don't know if anyone really knew what to expect overall. We were just coming in there to you know, meet people. This was like the first time regions were coming together to play DDR, as far as we knew. And I guess that would have attributed me to doing something significant. Because I was talking with Deshaun, and he was practicing on the jazz religiously. Like, that was his pocket song.
Yeah. Like,
he knew when he had to pull that out, he was going to pull that out, and he was going to whip whoever's ass with that song. He was STGing it constantly. It was just like, and no one knew about it. He was playing that in secret. Nobody fucking knew, except for me because I was close to him. But yeah, he was ready for that. So if that was the case, then I would have also been in a situation where I was like, I'm going to put in some time to something to show the Northeast region what's up, and that was Drifting Away.
So you were practicing Drifting Away, and the competition for this tournament was also Wicked, who I have interesting information on him, and John Avalashi. I wasn't at this tournament, so this is all hearsay from my point of view. For Wicked, he did DXY, right?
Correct.
And that was a really good freestyle.
Very good.
That was the one with the camera where he's like, smile.
Yeah, right at this pause, basically, yeah.
So that was a good freestyle. He's a battle rapper.
Yes, I know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I knew that.
That's
cool.
Donnie
Donnie Menace.
Stefan told me that, and I was like, "What?" Like, I knew who Donnie Menace was, and I knew who Wicked was. I didn't know they were the
same guy. Yeah, same person. We were friends on Facebook, I think. Actually, in fact.
Wow.
But yeah, I knew he was a battle rapper. Yeah.
And so Nugget was there also, and then so John Avalashi. The story with him is that he took himself to be like a professional dancer, right? So he thought he was supposed to win first place, right? Did you know him before this tournament?
No.
He was just he's from New Jersey?
Yep. I think so. Or upstate. One of the two.
Okay.
Yeah. Never saw him before though.
So he just showed up. He thought he was going to win. Was there any discussion between you two before the tournament?
Not before.
Like during the tournament?
Afterwards. No, it was all afterwards. I don't think it was anything during the tournament even. It was after the tournament.
So so the tournament happens. You do Drifting Away.
Yeah.
He did he do Healing Vision, Angelic Mix? Yeah. Okay.
Well, no. I think just regular Healing Vision.
Regular Healing Vision.
Yeah.
Was this the one where he did the backflip or something like that?
Yes.
Okay, I remember that too. And so he does that. Wicked does DXY. So it's you first. John second, and Wicked third. How did you feel when you won?
Oh my god, it was incredible. It was incredible. You know, because again, this is everyone from the entire Northeast, right? That's there. There's cameras. Not even cameras. This is ridiculous. There's cameras here. Everyone from the Northeast, right? And it was great. It was great. I'm sure my heart stopped, you know, when I heard or whatever. That part in particular is a blur. Yeah, like I think what's, I guess, interesting, I suppose, again, about Drifting Away in particular was, first off, I don't think anyone was thinking about freestyling to that song at all, right? It wasn't Spin the Disc, it wasn't Kind Lady, it was just like this trancey song, number one. Number two, I don't think anyone realized, or maybe they did, but they didn't think of it, about how many arrows were missing out of the beginning of that song when you put it on Little, that allowed me to get off the pad, right? Finding songs for freestyles, finding a song that you can get off the pad and actually dance was like incredible. Yeah. Right? That was like you know, an ace in the hole, where you found that song and you're like, if I put this on Little and I can just jump off the pad and do some real dancing, that would be awesome. And that's what happened, right? I would, through half of that song, I'm off the pad, like in the crowd, dancing. In one of the lyrics part that it talks about like falling, I fall and I do the reverse fall, which is like my signature move back then. Before DDR, like I do that dancing on like a stage. I would do that move, and putting that in the song was I think really great. The second half of the song I barely like even tried to think about dancing to. In fact, I feel like that was like a gimme kind of part of it. Everything that I put into was trying to figure out what the beginning part of that was, because the second part of it was again trying to make sure I passed the song, but trying to do as best I could in terms of a presentation for it. Of course, with John's freestyle, that's also, I don't think he even really stealthed it much, because it was really just him doing the drunken thing to arrows, and the big thing that was the big aha was the backflip during the heartbeats in the middle. And of course, the backflip is a serious shit to do on a DDR pad. Osh will tell you, of course. Yeah. But that's a big deal, right? So everybody had some move that was like the thing, and I guess the more impressive, the more unique it was, I guess, was the thing that brought it over, right? Because like DXY had the smile was cool, and then the backflip is definitely a lot more extravagant than just the click. But I think me coming off the pad and dancing in front of the judges and like really like doing crowd work was the thing that put me over. I think that was it. Personally, I don't know. I actually never talked to the judges about it, but that's what I felt would have done it.
Do you remember Nugget's routine?
It would have looked like every other Nugget routine, as far as I'm concerned. I don't know.
I think it's online though. I think Dollar Bill has a lot of good DDR content on his YouTube channel. Sure, I think he has no tech. Oh well, I think Deshaun and Zeus's only courses on his channel, but I think he has a lot of freestyles from 2002 Sportsworld. So that's cool. And the thing that I just want to mention, I mean, if you can comment on this if you want, but the tricky thing about freestyle is that it's subjective.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's caused so much controversy. I've been in freestyle tournaments where people have been mad that I placed, and like you can probably speak on this way more than me, but I guess that's the problem. You try to like spread the judges out. As somebody who's also organized tournaments, you probably have tried to spread judges out from different places and different facets of like, this one's a professional dancer, this person, we worked at UPS, you had like one of the managers from UPS there who doesn't know anything about DDR. Yep. So no matter how hard you try though, it's subjective. Right. And I think that makes it difficult for people like you, like who freestyle, you put your heart and soul into something, and somebody may just not like it. Yeah. And
we'll definitely talk about that with Wild Rush in particular, but keeping with drifting away, and I think the part of it that came out of it was the John coming in and kind of like trying to roast New York about my win, because he came in, I think his girlfriend came in as a professional dancer and being like, it was bullshit, it wasn't as good as mine, I did a fucking black flip, etc.
This is directly after the tournament.
Yeah, directly after in the forums.
Oh, in the forums.
In the forums, yeah. It was not in the venue. No, he didn't speak to me in the venue. But yeah, in the forums, he was just so mad about losing, and obviously New York's on my side. I got all New York on my side because we fucking brought it home, and you can't come into New York like that, so he was flamed up hard in there, and I think there was a similar thread that came up in New Jersey that he was trying to start as well, and it didn't look good for him, real talk, right? Because sure, okay, you can feel bad about it, whatever, but what happened is what happened, and it's at that point you have to be the bigger person in the whole thing, right? Yeah. I mean, especially since in much of my career of doing freestyle, I was very often second to Nugget, very often.
That's why I said that, and that's why we're bouncing back and forth between Sportsworld and CSA1, because I think you made mention of this at one point.
Yeah.
Where people were saying that they may have felt that, because Wild Rush was a good freestyle. I don't remember what Nugget did at CSA1, but I think you said that people felt like you should have won CSA1.
Correct. So that's, I guess, finishing up Sportsworld, that happens, you know, and we're all feeling, New York's feeling awesome about that just in general. And yeah, coming up, there was probably another couple little tournaments, but the next bigger one that I went to was up in Crossgates.
Oh, real quick before you do that, what's your comment on, like, because you and Deshaun were always very good friends. You were there for his win, like what was that like?
The win was incredible. I mean, and we all when all of us talk about it, we do wish that the video was there.
I'm gonna find that video. I don't know how I'm gonna find that
video of him getting 7 greats on the Jazz. You know, we all knew Deshaun to like be humble about DDR, but at this point in time, when he knew he was going to go against, you know, Zeus and have to deal with Max Unlimited, he knew this is the time for On the Jazz. And when he kills the single-digit greats, I think it was 7, maybe a little higher than that, but it was eons below what Zeus had. He popped off, slaps, runs into somebody off the platform, like it was so great to see him so excited about that. The whole crowd was absolutely out of their mind, because again, think about it, like coming up to this, we know Max Unlimited is a card that many people have.
Yeah.
And Deshaun does not have that card, right? So we knew, like, he was going to go against Zeus. Zeus was going to pick Max Unlimited. What does Deshaun have? Now, I was one of the very few people in the audience that knew what he had. Mm-hmm. And when he picked it, I'm sure there were people who were like, On the Jazz? Like, what are you going to do with this? And when he did it, the crowd was, like, astonished. Like, the feelings in that room across everyone was all over the place, right? It's not the same for Max Unlimited. We knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? We knew. Like, Max Unlimited happens, okay. Deshaun, I think he even fails the song because he only goes like two-thirds of the way through, and he fails, and obviously Zeus finishes it or whatever. And we were all like, yeah, okay, we knew what was going to happen there. But it was On the Jazz that we didn't know. Most of the room didn't know what was going to happen. And when it happened, the room exploded, right? And obviously it was very tense during the Oni course part of it in particular. But especially like, oh man, that match is movie worthy, right? All the way up to like Burning Heat, where he misses arrows in there. And is like 1 bar or 2 bars or whatever the hell it was at the end of that. Yeah. And you're all holding your seat because you're like, he's the underdog.
Yeah.
Right? He's not the guy who could beat Max Unlimited. He's the guy who just played On the Jazz and is still out on top. He's the underdog. So you're like, you have to kind of root for him regardless of where you are, you know. And when he did it, it was humongous. It was incredible. It's really impossible, I think, to really put it into words how incredible that moment was, just for him, for DDR, for New York. It was great.
I'm glad that he got that tournament win. And what was frustrating on like a different note is that it's one of those videos pre-YouTube that was on everybody's hard drive in New York City.
That's right.
Along with like Aaron in Japan and Yasu Triple A and Maxim. Like if you look in the DDR folder of any one of us in 2002, it was like 20 videos, and then Deshaun's Oni course against Zeus and him winning that tournament. And I like seeing him popping off was like regular. That was like, if I was bored on a Saturday night and I wanted to watch DDR videos, I'll go in my folder, and now it's just nowhere to be found.
Yep.
So somebody on our Facebook friends list has that video on a CD somewhere. And I'm gonna figure out. I'm gonna get it. I don't know how.
You know what? I have old hard drives of old computers, and I know, like, I have steps from that I made, whole lots of steps or whatever, and I've never actually looked for videos. Maybe I'll have to fire some up and see if I can find it in there, because you're right. Like, you know, that video in particular is uncharacteristically but Deshaun.
Yeah. All right, so you were getting into CSA 1 and Wild Rush.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure similarly, I definitely remember practicing Do You Remember Me as the first song in there, which I'm pretty sure that video's up. But yeah, Wild Rush comes up, and I'm also practicing that. And more or less stealthing it. I forget what difficulty it was on, but I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to have the mask and the getup and you know, the whole kind of you know, motif of like this being that's like coming alive and like learning how to dance, and like, you know, as Wild Rush is, it like grows and grows in terms of the feeling of it. And what was also really nice too is that like the judges were very close to the stage and there was no bar, so you can really be in there. So like when I put the mask on and I can come into the stage and I'm like in here or whatever, that's really like, you know, again, crowd work, right? I'm going into the judges, I'm getting in there, and then obviously later on, right before the beat comes in, I'm doing the, you know, the mime box, and I go boom, 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 right? And the crowd's like, oh, that was cool, right? And then we, you know, speed up and we finally fall at the end. So like that was like, it was like a story that I'm telling. Whether or not the story actually was cohesive is, you know, could be up to interpretation, but yeah, so I performed that, feel good about it. People are chanting my name actually at the end of the video. They're like, Phrekwenci, Phrekwenci. So that was really fun. And then yeah, I did Maximum Overdrive, which is probably maybe out there, maybe not. I haven't seen it in a while. But then I got second place, and the room was disappointed. Obviously, I was disappointed, but I remember the room being disappointed in that. And I remember people talking about it, and yeah, I was disappointed. I don't think I was vocal about, again, Nugget doing essentially the same freestyle 3 times for that tournament. I don't think I was vocal about it like on the forums. I might have been like, you know, in person talking about that feeling about it, but over the years, I ended up talking to, I'm pretty sure it was every single judge for that tournament.
Oh.
And every single judge told me that I should have won. And I'm like, what? Right? Like, that was you who made the decision.
Yeah.
What happened? You know, it's like, why did you not decide that then, but then tell me afterwards? Right? It was just like very weird. And yeah, that it, you know, here's the thing, right? Does anybody remember Nugget's freestyle from that? No, I don't think anyone does, because like I said, they all look the same. It's very hard to tell which one it was. But like with mine, because it's unique and they have their own personality to them, they stand out.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is more it's more it's better than just being another one of the other freestyles, right? It has more personality to it. It's more there's more memory to it. Yeah, so, you know, retrospect, I'm glad that I did Wild Rush. I'm glad that people remember Wild Rush, and I'm glad, you know, of what it became. You know, all things considered. So.
Yeah, it definitely. Wild Rush had a lot of personality. I couldn't have told you that you placed first, second, or third but it was like one of the things in rotation on people's hard drives. And then when YouTube first came out and everybody was uploading stuff, like you just type in Phrekwenci DDR, and that was one of the ones that came up. Angel did a parody to it, like as a joke.
Yeah, the parody was really funny. So I was there at NYDS for that, and because he was threatening me with a parody.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was threatening me for months about the parody, and he finally ended up doing it. I don't think he even planned to do it. He was just like, I'm doing it right now. This is the day. I'm going to do it. Because we would while out at NYDS, because we didn't care. It was a small, stinky, backseat room in the middle of Queens. So, like, it's not like, you know, there's people who don't know what's going on back there. It was like a hangout place just for us, mostly.
Yeah.
So, he stripped down practically naked, found some suspenders and a hat from Nam's shop, probably. And
got the mask somewhere. I don't know where he got the mask.
I think I might have brought it because he told me he was going to do it. So I was like, "Fuck it, let me bring the mask too." I think that's probably what happened.
So like, and the thing with you and Nugget is like, part of the reason why I want to make these videos is to let everybody speak their truth. Like whether or not I agree with you, I wasn't really involved in freestyle back then, and I think you would definitely agree that Brian was like, he was like a really nice guy. He was a really chill dude. You know, I I think he's contributed a lot to freestyle, and whether you like his freestyles or not, you have to talk about him if you're talking about DDR freestyle back then. So,
let me be clear about that. Is that his freestyles were good? My big thing about it is it always looked like it was the same, and maybe it's a matter of when you have a different set of judges every single time who may or may not have seen him, right? If you have a different set of judges each time, and this is the first time they've ever seen it, well, yeah, okay, it's going to be really great. So there's going to get a high place because of that. But because I see it all the time, this is the same thing as like looking at any other like talent show that is on TV. There's acts that I see on TV that I've seen years ago on YouTube or whatever, that I'm like, I've seen it before, not as interesting as I would have, seen something I've never seen before, right? I would rate that higher because I've never seen it before.
Right.
So I think it's the same kind of thing, is that because I've already seen it so many times, I feel like, well, shit, I made this unique thing that no one has seen. Judges, DDR people, whoever, no one's seen this, so that should have more value. But that's not the way to win. The way to win is to entertain the judges. Right. Whoever these people are, and he played to that, and he did it well.
Right. Were there any other? I just figured I would bring this up before we move on to Extreme. Were there any other politics or freestyle during this time that I'm forgetting about? Because I know Dollar Bill and Jim the Fly were very involved in New Jersey. Did you just not really cross paths with them, or was there anybody? There was a Connecticut freestyler. I think he was a freestyler who looked almost exactly like Jiffy. I can't remember this guy's name.
Yes, I remember you talking.
They looked like twins when they were in the same arcade together, and I think he was also a freestyler.
Yes, I don't remember his name either, but you're right. You're absolutely right. There was two people who looked, exactly the same, like Jiffy. Dollar Bill didn't really freestyle in the same tournaments that I did.
Okay.
And I think he was really more involved with capturing freestyle. I think that was what he wanted to do, was because he had the video camera and he was the one doing it. I didn't really experience him in many tournaments, honestly, with me. And I think it's similar to like how like Sean was a separate era, more or less, from Deshaun, from Stefan, from you, right? Like a different era of stuff. I think Dollar Bill and really Jim the Fly were a separate era that happened before me, where we didn't really cross much. I think that's what happened, because I remember them being freestylers, but I don't remember competing against them very often. I know that Jim the Fly would later compete in Sportsworld, the second Sportsworld, in particular, because I think he did Vanity Angel in that one. He did.
He did Vanity Angel in CSA too.
Yes, I remember that he did that as well. I remember Vanity Angel somewhere where he had the cane and that kind of stuff. But I feel like that was Sportsworld maybe as well. But I know I'm pretty sure he did Sportsworld 2 and freestyled in that one. I don't remember him doing it in Sportsworld 1. But yeah, I think it's a matter of eras of freestyle and the overlap that would have happened, because I ended when Jing was coming up, and Jing was basically just sweeping house.
Yeah, he danced, and there just so happened to be a DDR pad under his feet. That's basically what Jing was.
Exactly what it was. Yeah.
All right, so you basically win Sportsworld.
Yep.
You got second in CSA 1. And at this point, you're basically solidified in terms of like a prominent freestyler. And you may or may not have started being involved in helping with tournaments, but around this time, Extreme comes out.
Yep.
Let's talk about the song selection first. Like, what was your interpretation of like A, more freestyle availability, and B, the new 10-footers? Yeah, somebody who like didn't play tech. Like, what was your,
Well, actually, you know what? Yeah, let me just go into Extreme then. So, Extreme came out in Japan before it came out here in the US. And because of that, we had Stepcharts of Extreme before we got the machine here. So I thought it would be really cool to learn how to stealth something before even playing the song. So that's what I did with Kiss Me All Night Long. So Kiss Me All Night Long I learned the steps to the music, and then like performed, tried to kind of figure out how that was supposed to go with the music, because I don't think they even had step charts for it yet. I think I'm not step charts, sorry, simulator files for it yet. It was just the step chart and the music. That's all we had. So I was stepping it out, and eventually NYDS gets the first Extreme machine, so we're all there. And my first song, I wanted to stealth day one.
Oh, that's awesome.
So on day one, I put it on mirror. I don't know if I put it on hidden or what was it? Stealth? Was it called stealth? Mm-hmm. I don't know if I completely stealth, but I definitely put it on mirror. And I turned around and I did the song. Except there's a pause in that song.
Ah, okay, yeah.
And where the pause was in the chart was not accurate to where it actually was in the song.
Oh, okay.
So I fucked up. And I think I failed it the first time because of that. The second time, because I probably put it on stealth. The second time I put it on, and I didn't put it on stealth just so I could see what happened. And then I found out, oh shit, the pause is in the wrong spot, or for me. And then I eventually learned where the pause was to do the song properly.
Yeah.
But the song is really fun to do because there are natural spins in it that you could perform similar to a Paranoia or a Love Mix in there. It's just a lot slower, so it's a lot easier to do. But I could still stealth the spins. I can still do that today.
You still remember that?
The spin parts, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I can still do it. Because I can still do that, and I can still do like the beginning part of Love Mix as well. So yeah, but that's the beginning for that stuff. In terms of freestyle, we're just looking for songs that had smallest amounts of steps so that we can get off the pad and do whatever. So like Sync on Challenge, I think it was Challenge. The entire like first half and ending half is just gone on Little.
Yeah, you're stepping in between the beat.
Yeah. So that was a like immediate, like everyone recognized, like, oh, okay, Sync, we're gonna try to do something with Sync, right? And that's one of the ones that definitely pulled out. I think. Let's see what else came out of that. It's hard to say. It's so long ago. Yeah, it's hard. I don't remember anything else out of that because I think I don't remember performing in any large tournaments after CSA.
Mm-hmm. You were hosting stuff and you were doing exhibitions, right?
Correct. Yeah. So that's basically when the transition started for me, participating in tournaments to actually hosting tournaments or events or whatever. So I was kind of transitioning that way. And but you mentioned the 10-footers also.
Yeah. And
this is, I think, when Stefan was coming up, right? Like Max Unlimited is there. He's been growing that out. I think he's Paranoid Survivor's there, and he comes up and he's like killing the regular Paranoid Survivor. Like he's doing like amazing on it. And I think PSMO wasn't out yet, right? It wasn't immediately out.
Yeah.
So when that comes out, we're like, so Stefan, you got this? And he's like, no, hell no. He's like, hell no. But he eventually obviously did.
Yeah.
But at first he was like, hell no, it's wild, right? And I mean, speaking about the 10-footers for a second, the 10-footers are, from a gameplay standpoint, a masterclass in step chart like organization and curation and design in lots of different ways. So starting with Max 300.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you know there's a pause in the middle of Max 300? Why is that there?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay. It's Newton's law. Object in motion tends to want to stay in motion. Object at rest wants to stay at rest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the entire song was Kakumei, right? You're going. You're just going, right? Max 300 forces you to stop and take a breath. And that's why it's so hard to start back up again after the pause. And that's why that's there. That's what makes it harder than it would be otherwise, right? If it was just max 300, you're just going, right? You're just going. So they did the exact same thing, of course, with Max Unlimited in certain cases, but Max Unlimited takes it to another level because in Max Unlimited, like, what's the word I'm looking for? It puts you on a wrong path. So basically, you get used to the way that you're playing in Max Unlimited, and then toward the end, it puts you in situations that if you don't know what's happening, your feet will be in the wrong spot, and you won't be able to get out.
Yeah, there are a few, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that happens at the end, well, especially in like the up-down spots where you're like, if you don't turn the right, because your body, the way that you designed it, the way that the body wants to go in that particular spot toward the last third, your body is looking to go in this direction. If you don't do the hard switch to go here, you are going to put yourself in a really hard spot to get out of, and you will definitely lose the song if you don't know about it. So it's again, masterclassing in design about where the body is and how the body's meant to move with the arrows that are there. So that continues on with the Paranoias, maybe a little bit less with the Legend of Max in particular, but the Paranoia Survivors, again, masterclass in where the body is at any point in time and what's possible and what's going to make it hard and things like that. So I really appreciate, you could see the progression of realization of DDR design, DDR step design, all the way up into Extreme. Past Extreme is another story, clearly, but up until Extreme, you could see the progression of how people were recognizing what a good step chart is and how to make something hard without just throwing a whole bunch of steps at it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Yeah. I wanted to ask you that because A, I know you used to make step charts a lot, and B, you didn't really play them. Everybody played on their fingers. I think everybody could do PSMO and Max Unlimited and Step Mania. So from the perspective of somebody who A, freestyle and B, used to make step charts, I wanted to know your take on it. And I think I agree with you. I think Konami did a great job at putting these things forward. They would just, a lot of the stuff they did, they would throw everything to the wall and see what was stuck. You know, I firmly believe that some of the stuff like the stealth option, they didn't really think people were going to do stuff like that. I don't even know if they really thought people would do PSMO. It's even arguable that they didn't even know if people were going to do Max 300 when they first came out. You know?
Totally.
So I think that it's cool, but they didn't just do it. They did it with intent, but they were like, nobody going to do this. Which is different than like Vertex Squared or like, I can't even say what new, I don't know, like Valkyrie Demand. I don't know
whatever is out there.
Yeah,
I don't know what's out there either.
So yeah, you're right. I agree with that 100%. What were some good Long Island DDR players during the Extreme era that you remember?
I didn't play in Long Island. I don't think I played in Long Island Extreme because Extreme wasn't there for a while, if not at all. I'm trying to think if it was even where it was.
There was a DDR player. I don't think he cared for me too much. I think he was just part of the newer community of In the Groove players. I really thought he was a cool DDR player because he played 1X and no bar. His nickname was Jonathan DDR.
Oh, I remember him. Yeah. He was very good.
I thought he was pretty good. He played a lot of Oni courses. He was good at getting marvelouses. He just didn't seem to care for me that much. And then it was either him or it was just like other people who was part of a team in Long Island called Team Blue, I think they were called.
Oh, I don't remember that. Yeah, at this time I kind of like disassociated myself from Long Island. Okay. Because it would have been, I would have moved to Queens at this point. So I would have moved to Queens and I would have been like, I'm in Queens. I don't think I'm even, I got rid of the car. I'm not driving. So I'm firmly in Queens, and I'm then now associating with New York DDR, New York City DDR, not Long Island DDR, because I'm not being able to go out to all those places any longer. So I think that's really what happened, was that I became a New York City DDR person, not like continuing to be Long Island. Okay. What about 2003 Christmas of Fire? What was your involvement in that Sportsworld 2003? Okay, so that's Sportsworld. Yeah, so for Sportsworld, I did not compete. I didn't even do a demonstration or anything like that. I think I was doing interviews there. I think I had a microphone. I was doing interviews with people. I remember
the footage for that. What?
Yeah, I think that's there. I think I have. Maybe I have it. Maybe I don't. But I'm pretty sure I was doing interviews with people because I'm pretty sure I had a microphone that I brought with me. I also know that I was put on the panel to judge the freestyle.
Okay.
And this is the year John was back. John Avalashi was back again. And he also did not get first place this time. I remember this in particular because I believe, first off, I think he did Angelic Mix, maybe, possibly. I don't remember it entirely. But he came back with his Kung Fu uniform.
Yeah, like a nunchucks.
And he had nunchucks this time, yeah.
I remember. I was there for this.
So he had nunchucks this time, and he was doing the nunchucks thing. And, you know, at least from my perspective, I'm like, I kind of just, this is like a one-trick pony? Like, what's up here? So I don't think I was all that impressed in the grand scheme of things. Again, it's not a matter of him and our history. It was literally just, I've seen this before already. All he did was add nunchucks. So I don't know what you expect to get from me from this.
Yeah.
So I don't think I scored him very well. But I remember when the results were called, he got so mad he ran up the wall and backflipped off of it. Do you remember this? If you were there?
I thought so he did a backflip in his routine and then did that. I remember him running up the wall, but I thought that was part of his routine.
Not part of the routine. No, he got mad that he didn't win and he screamed, running full on at the wall, runs up the wall and backflips. And we're like, what the fuck is going on? You know? And actually, when I went to my car in the parking lot, because my car's license plate actually said Phrekwenci on it. It was very clearly my car. Someone poured fast food all over my car in the parking lot. I'm going to only assume it was him because I'm sure he still had that grudge over the number of years. But yeah, I was like, that's bad form.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I remember from that. I remember Jin the Fly performing in that. I remember, pretty sure that Sora performed freestyle in that one as well. And that's all I remember from that one in particular.
I want to say that Big Goblin might have won that in terms of tech. But yeah, that was a fun tournament. That was, I didn't get to go to the one in the year prior, and I don't know where it was in 2002 and 2003. It was on the second floor of Sportsworld.
Yeah.
So it was just fun. It was just like something we did for the day. That was a fun tournament.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't the hype of the first one. I think people certainly wanted it to be, but it ended up just kind of not being the same.
Well, I think more people came because of what happened in 2002, and I think Sammy mentioned he didn't have the capacity to accommodate the amount of people. He got into a car accident. Well, I don't know if that was 2002 or 2003. One of them, he got into a car accident like a few days before the tournament, but I remember them when I was there in 2003. They were moving fans around for the freestyle portion and for the tech division.
I remember there being a lot of people in that room.
Yeah.
Yep. I would like to think, I don't remember from the video with Sammy. By the way, the video with Sammy was excellent because there's a lot of stuff that he said that I actually had no idea about, especially like when I was working with him for Digital Life. But I would think that the car accident probably would have been Sportsworld 1, only because I know of all the bad luck that he had for Sportsworld 1. So I'm going to assume that it was probably part of Sportsworld 1. Because I don't think there was a lot of bad luck for Sportsworld 2 from what I remember. Mm-hmm. But I remember specifically being a lot of bad luck for Sportsworld 1 for him.
Okay. I don't know if I'm missing anything between the beginnings of Extreme and then leading up to Digital Life 2004, but like you were such a big part of running at the time, and even in 2004, the biggest DDR tournament that had happened thus far.
Right. Yeah, so I think there's a number of things that happened there. One of those things, and the timeline is really hazy for me, but being a moderator, which we talked about earlier, being a moderator gave me access to that moderator forum. And what would happen in the moderator forum sometimes is that we would, J-Dog would get requests from news outlets about, hey, we got we're doing a piece, we need a DDR player locally, and we would, among the moderators, we would, because we're supposed to know our communities, we'd be like, aha, okay, we got someone in Missouri, great, we're gonna, give them this person, this is probably the right person for this, et cetera, et cetera. So that was me for New York. I was the person that I was like, okay, we have this event that's coming up, that's where, the all the stuff that you've been on has come from, things that Angel's been on as well, like the MTV thing. So all that kind of came from someone seeing DDRFreak as the top result when you search for DDR in the United States, and then reaching out to the administrator, being J-Dog, and being like, hey, we're looking to do a piece, do you got anybody? Filtering down, boom, boom, boom. So because I was the guy, because New York Star Day wasn't doing it, Remy was way hands off, so was Deshaun for the most part, because he just wanted to play. I, for whatever reason, was like, yeah, I'll do it. I'm excited. Let's do it. So that was a part of me kind of like organizing stuff, because I was beginning to know people, reach out to people. People knew me because I was a moderator. So that was happening. That was like growing that way. The Digital Life thing in 2004, me being involved was a fluke. The reason I say that is because Sammy knew who I was because of Sportsworld years before, right? So Sammy knew who I was, and I was, had a relationship with Sammy. But I went to Sportsworld, not Sportsworld, to Digital Life. I think I was just an attendee, if I remember correctly. And if I remember right, I think I just went there early, and I think I was just helping Sammy out. Or maybe he reached out to me because he was like, I need help. And I was like, fuck it, I'll help you, of course, no problem. So something of that nature, where it was like, I wasn't initially involved with Digital Life in the first year, but by that weekend, it looked like it was me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could have fooled me, man, yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what happened. So, in fact, the first day that, and I think it was like a soft opening, so I must have been in contact with Sammy, but I wasn't like in charge. That was not what the case was. He just needed help. So I remember Thursday being like a soft opening. It was basically just like for the other exhibitors to be whatever. And our stage was basically in the front. You would walk in and you would see DDR, which was incredible placement. And because of that, we would get crowds constantly. So much so that the VP of Ziff Davis walking around is like, this is really cool. So he tried to find someone who's in charge. I looked like I was in charge. So he's like, hey, we want to, we see that you guys are getting a lot of attraction. Is there any way that we could like boost, this up? Can we like, I don't know, put some monitors up or put this thing on a stage? And I remember talking to him being like, look, the guy who owns the booth isn't here right now. Sammy was out at lunch or whatever the heck it was. Do you mind coming back in like a half hour, an hour, or whatever? I said, yeah, sure. So Sammy comes back. I tell Sammy what's going on. He's like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. So the guys from Ziff Davis come back and we're talking with them about what we could do. And the following days is basically when you had the two monitors on the screens. Yeah. We tried to lift it up. And we made it into a little bit more of a production than we were expecting it to be, which obviously was incredible because it really, like having the most amount of people at our booth consistently throughout the entire day was a big draw, right? You would have events at certain booths that would draw a crowd, for that one moment, but we had the largest consistent crowd through the entire event, which was a big deal for them. So they realized like the draw, the potential of this. They saw the number of people and the excitement that was coming through. So Sammy basically and I partnered up where Sammy was going to basically kind of do the coordination for the machines and things like that, because I think it was his machine that was there, and he foot the bill for the initial footprint for that spot. But he was doing the kind of logistics of figuring out where the machines were, and I think he did the rule set the following years and stuff like that. But I was like the face because he didn't want to be in the limelight for all that. And in fact, even in like Sportsworld, the original ones, he's also really not like present as much. He's kind of like trying to do the operational stuff in the back. So yeah, I was like the face of it. So I was, and I'm naturally assertive as well. That made it really, easy to run something. So in the following year, 2005, which is yours, the one that you won.
Yeah.
In that year, when we are, we have meetings with Ziff Davis to figure out what the logistics are going to be, and that's when we get like 4 machines, like a double size footprint for the whole thing. They don't sponsor it with the cash that you got, the trophy, I think all that, the flyer, all that stuff was because Ziff was putting a whole bunch of money into this for us, on top of additional sponsors I think we probably would have gotten as well. And that's kind of how that grew. It was basically every year from then, we would have a meeting before Digital Life with Ziff Davis to be like, okay, or at least a couple meetings, coordinating what's going to happen. And then we would have like a post meeting afterwards and be like, okay, this is what happened next time, etc. And I remember the last Digital Life that we had the meeting afterwards, and I remember the guy going, yeah, I don't think we're going to have it again next year, which is exactly what happened. They didn't have it again because they were Ziff Davis was becoming bankrupt, I think, at that point, which is why they were going out. But yeah, that was it. I accidentally fell into that. Right place, right time, I guess, because again, I'm pretty sure it was just Sammy looking for help, and I'm a guy that wants to help, in a lot of the cases, and sometimes it's just a matter of right place, right time, I think is what happened there. Plus, again, like I said, the assertiveness really helps from a tournament organization standpoint, right, to get things moving and done. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't remember if this was before or after Digital Life 2004, but you were also on the news.
Yes.
On the Fox. And that's also a media segment that you were able to do. Do you remember that at all?
Oh, yeah, I do. All right. So, like I mentioned earlier, I was the hub for when some media about DDR would happen. And it just so happened that we got a message, I think it was Friday afternoon, Friday evening, that they were going to want to do a piece Saturday or Sunday, or maybe it was even Monday. It was a weird day that I knew either everyone was at school or working or whatever, and I would have been the only one really available because it was so short notice and such a weird time in the day to do this thing. And it was very vague, what they wanted. They just wanted to find a DDR player. So I was all right. Normally I would ship it off to somebody to do it, but I was because the show's so, I'm just going to do it. So I go in, and I'm in the green room, and I'm sitting next to the person who's going to interview me, and I don't know who's going to interview me at this point in time. I find out later it's actually this person. She doesn't know I'm the person who's there on behalf of DDR, so that's not there. So just no communication there. Again, they just want someone to talk about DDR. I have no idea what the angle is, because if I know the angle, we had some time, I would have found the right person for the job here, because there's lots of different angles. The particular angle that they were going for was the exercise and weight loss angle, which is not me. At the time, I was skinny as hell. You've seen some of the photos and videos of me. I am really skinny because of course, of DDR, and also being in the city with a paycheck that wasn't really great enough. So I'm skinny already. I'm not a weight loss story, so I can't speak to the weight loss part. I absolutely know of people who've lost weight. Actually, Cowman is a name that maybe you know, maybe you don't know.
It feels vaguely familiar.
Long Island player. Amazing weight loss story.
Okay.
And he's a great guy, really sweetheart. But he would have been the number one person that I would have thought of at the time to be hey, look, can you come in and talk about this in particular, because you have a really good results out of that story. So and now actually I'm thinking of other DDR players that at the time too. There was Mike Conkling that used to play with us, and then there was a guy called Limp Penis. You remember that guy's name? Okay. So there's a guy named Limp Penis who also played as well.
Mike Conkling sounds familiar.
Yeah, they were in Long Island as well. Fun zone. Anyway, going back to the news article, news piece. So they sit me down in the chair, and the person who's interviewing me is like, "Oh my God, I didn't know it was you that we were interviewing. I thought it was going to be some like 8-year-old or 9-year-old kid because it's a video game, right?" And I'm there being 24, I think it was at the time or whatever, going like, "No, like I would have found that for you if you wanted it, but no one told me what you wanted here." So it's like, "Oh, okay, no problem, we'll make it work." So the whole thing's live. And actually, before I get to the actual thing, I tell people, I think at the time, that I'm about to do this. And it was Remy who was, this is when, I guess like one of these new 2DX mixes came out, and there's a new meme about Rizlam Remix.
Okay.
And it's a weird song on 2DX or whatever, but there was a meme coming out about it for whatever reason that they were just putting like Rizlam Remix on everything and laughing about it. So Remy's like, if you say Rizlam Remix on the air, he would do something. I don't remember what it was. Yeah. And I was highly considering it, but I didn't end up doing it. And I'll tell you why afterwards. Because during the show, we're talking about DDR and just generally, and then she starts, I guess, trying to be more specific about it, and because I don't have the exercise angle, I start talking about the song's being really fast and it's really hard. And she's like, "But let's be more serious," she says. I'm like, "How? You fucking bitch," I'm thinking in my head. Yeah. Do you have any fucking idea how serious this shit is right now? Like, how dare you talk about fucking how serious this shit is, right? At this time, right? I've been winning tournaments. I'm a moderator of 800,000 fucking people who are playing this game across the world. You have no fucking idea, woman. But I'm trying to keep my composure. It's like, what about the health angle, right? The exercise angle. And I made some shit up off of the spot about, of course it's, exercise, et cetera, et cetera. But again, I don't know it because it wasn't me, right? And then they cut to Jason Enos, live from California, talking about the new mix that came out at the time. And that was basically it. And when I was walking out of there, I was like kicking myself. I should have just put Rizlam Remix in there. I should have said, you know what? There's a Rizlam remix of different songs that you could play, and I know the whole community would have like exploded once I said that, because I feel so terrible about that interview for multiple reasons, right? For not being the right person, for the way that they treated DDR not being serious. Like it was to us, all that stuff, made me feel terrible that I should have just trolled it.
Well, I didn't know it was like that. I thought, I just thought it was another opportunity for DDR to get some airtime. I didn't know you felt like that.
Yeah, it did, but, and this is, I guess, somewhat of how my disdain for DDR in the media started to come around, because as the digital lives were becoming more and more apparent, and how much I wanted to see DDR be a big thing, we would always see it in the media as a joke.
Yeah.
Every single time. It was just a joke. It just, on the pads, look at them, it was spinning around. It was just always a joke, and I hated it. Mm-hmm. Right? But the thing is it was like, even bad exposure is good exposure. People would say is like, oh, well, they still showed the DDR, so isn't that good enough? Yeah. And the answer is like, but they could have done better. All they had to do was reach out to us, and you would have seen some incredible play. So this dovetails into something that kind of like defeated me, and something that Deshaun said to me. I was at the peak of like trying to make DDR a thing, right? I wanted it to be big. And Deshaun said this to me. He goes, DDR most likely will never be big. In the same way that like Evo is big. And the reason is very clear. If you were to broadcast DDR and you have someone randomly changing the channel and shows up on top of it. How is that person going to have any idea what the hell's going on? Right? At least in a fighting game, it looks closer to like boxing. And clearly the person who's getting hit more is the person who's losing, right? The person who's doing the hitting more is doing the winning, right? And there's life bars. It's closer to what people could expect from an actual fight, that people can relate to it more directly, like a layman person, right? It's very clear. When you broadcast DDR, all you see is just arrows and people running around. It's really hard to like figure out as a person from the outside who's winning at any point in time.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the blow that I took with the reality of it all, is that he was right.
So you're saying you agreed with him and that kind of...
That was basically it at the end. And I don't remember exactly when he kind of laid that on me in particular, because again I was trying to push it forward as much as I could, but he was right. Like, there would have been no way for someone to like haphazardly show up on a screen to know what's going on for this thing, because what was going on at the time was people would show up at an arcade and watch people play and be really excited about it, but that's free for them. It's free for the arcade, more or less, right? When you try to broadcast this thing and you're trying to get eyes on this thing, well, now you have to pay per the eyes, right? So the eyes showing up would need to stay on the program for a while for them to, feel like, there's a lot of people tuning in. Well, we can't like sell what DDR is going to be for the layman person. It'll only be DDR players, right? And we can't really get people who aren't DDR players to watch, right? We could get people who aren't fighting game players to watch Tekken, right? Because it's a fighting game, it's easier to watch. But for DDR, much harder. And I don't know what the answer is for that, personally.
Yeah, I've heard you and Deshaun say this before, and I think that it is a good point, but I don't agree with you guys. Okay. Only because of the amount of people who would watch us play DDR when we used to play. And I think that DDR, I don't know if it's true or not, where people would not be interested because there's really not much feedback until the end of the song. You have to have a little bit of knowledge before you say, oh, this person on the left or the person on the right one. But I think that DDR, more so than that, it's not because of that. What it is it suffers from a lack of attention from the creators of the game. And then legally, I can't speak specifically on this, but legally it just seems like it gets hit from every angle when it comes to royalties and copyright strikes. Now with Twitch, you can't, from what I hear, you can't even play DDR, and you can't stream it because you get hit with like copyrights left and right. They can't. The company who made DDR can't even put the songs that used to be in DDR back in without paying like Erotic or Captain Jack or whatever. So It's like a weird maze of navigating like music law mixed with the company just not even caring and putting more money in pachinko machines and 2DX than they do in DDR. So
yeah, I think there's definitely a number of things that would have attributed to it just failing, right? But if all that was out the window in terms of like Konami being interested in the whole thing, I still think it would have been a hard sell in comparison to that stuff. Because again, it's a minute and a half of not knowing what the fuck is going on. Like when you're looking at like gymnastics, which is highly technical, and they don't get a score until the end, right? You have to watch the whole thing. At least that's like visually entertaining, and as a person, you can like, oh my god, that's incredible what they're doing, etc., etc. When you see, from a person on the outside looking at a person just, jumping around on a pad, you don't see the skill in that. Right? Especially with all this stream of arrows that's coming up, really hard to read until you know what's happening. I think it's just a confusing thing that makes it really hard for any person who hasn't played before to have any idea what's going on. On top of which, later on, the degrees of separation between the winners is so minute at this point.
Yeah.
Where back in the day, back in like 7th Mixel Extreme, it was significant. You had what is essentially what the showman called playing cards, where you were basically like, almost like Yu-Gi-Oh! Be like, whoosh, on the jazz, right? Gotcha. Or Eversnow, boom, like that, right? Or your Max Unlimited, boom. Like that's the card I would play against you because I know that I'm good at this and you're bad at that, right? You'd have to have those songs to play around. These days, God, like, you can't find any. Everyone's so close in terms of skill that are at the top that now we're talking about, perfects in between. That it's like anybody's game. It's not like, like what an outcome could potentially be. It's like so close these days. But yeah, I'm too far gone to really know what's really happening now.
Yeah, same. So in 2004. We did Digital Life, but we had already gotten in the groove. Now, I don't remember you really playing in the groove that much, but I remember you being involved in the groove later on to some degree.
Yes.
What was your initial impression of In the Groove from like a freestyler or in general?
Oh God, well, there was no freestyling in the groove. It wasn't made for it. When I saw In the Groove, I thought it was like a regression.
Yeah.
And I say that not like some folks will say as a progression because of the difficulty progression. That's fair. But from a quality perspective about step design, regression. And I called that out very specifically with a term that I coined called ETS. So ETS stand for Electrotuned Standard Syndrome. And ETS basically is that if you played Electrotune on standard, you would be facing only this way for the entire song. Right? You wouldn't turn, you wouldn't do anything, it's just literally facing this way. And many of the songs in many difficulties had ETS. Right? And that's not dynamic. It's not making your body move and keeping you on your toes, literally and figuratively speaking. Like, that's not happening. You are literally just running in a line, to music, and that's it. And that was just like so brain dead about, providing the next level of DDR where, yes, okay, people are looking for harder stuff because they're now doing really well on PSMO and things like that. But it could have been better. And it's no, shade to Kyle Ward and the rest of the team that were putting that stuff together, because I admire them trying to do the next thing for DDR, absolutely, right? But from a step designer's perspective, it was a retrograde, right? It could have been better, especially from all of the stuff that we already had from DDR that we could have looked toward to then craft a little bit something closer. But yeah,
well, look, two things could be true at the same time, and I just want people to understand that, because I've said before, like, I'm not making these videos for anybody who was deeply involved in that community. I've come to realize that even back then that was a different community, and I'm pretty sure people may not like what you're saying and what I said, but two things could be true at the same time. It could have been that the game was not very well thought out in terms of steps, but what Kyle Ward and Rockstar was doing was very admirable.
Yes.
Because and I said this before, if Konami would have kept going on with In the Groove would never have existed, in my opinion. I think that call it Extreme 2 or call it like Ninth Mix, like that could have come out in 2004 and nobody, like, people wouldn't have even thought of trying to make In the Groove. It would have just been Stepmania, and we would have just been living the pipe dream of like playing Stepmania at home with our fingers, and then there would have been Paranoia Respect and Max Period and whatever. So both of those things could be true at the same time. It's not like you are just shitting on In the Groove, or like just trying to shit on In the Groove for the sake of shitting on it. I think that like it was very, all the assist ticks were very repetitive, and I think that it looked like somebody was just trying to have fun. Yeah. Like, but they were like, well, we got to actually make this serious. Some of the music was made for the game, so it doesn't sound like actual, like Drifting Away sounds like a real song. Right. Stay and Justify My Love and all, those are like real songs. There's a lot of songs in the Groove that were just like, okay, you wanted to make like a Max 300.
Right. Yeah, so very well said. right? I'm not intending to shit on In the Groove because it filled the void that the community needed. Full stop. It's what it did. That's what it was made to do, and it did it, and people did like it. But I have strong opinions about step design because I've been doing step design for a long time, right? From the DWI days and beyond. Like, I had a very strong feeling about how step design was supposed to be, so much so that, I mentioned earlier that I wrote a thesis about how step design should be done and what to consider when designing steps. Which I guess, I don't remember at the time, the timing in terms of when I wrote that or what have you, but Kyle was on the East Coast for something at this point in time. And this would have probably been around, In the Groove 2 would have been out at this point. And I think he might have been marketing it. Maybe he was at 8 on the break and we were there and testing it out or whatever. But he was here. He actually, I think he even was here for Digital Life, in fact, for something. But we linked up. And I went to the Upper West Side where he was staying in a hotel somewhere. And we went to a coffee shop. And he wanted to know more about Stepchart design because I was very vocal about that, clearly. So we pulled out his laptop and we co-authored Aliens in the Mist together. And that was for In the Groove 3.
Okay.
And when we did that, and I was discussing all the different kinds of patterns and how to make a song have personality and characteristics on it, and you'll see in Aliens in the Mist that there's the way that he wanted to do it was these kind of like backward like foot tail kind of things. It's almost like a crossover but from the top, and we kind of like had that as the theme for the song. He really liked that, and once he liked that, basically he gave me and I told him I had like I really wanted to re-step Clockwork Genesis and Infection because I felt like they could have been stepped with more personality. Mm-hmm. So that was like what he gave me was, okay, for In the Groove 2 PC, you can provide new steps to the hard version of Clockwork Genesis and the hard version of Infection. So if you have ITG2 PC, I have credits in that game.
Oh, nice.
For those two songs, maybe another one, but definitely those two songs. And that was kind of like my audition for ITG3. So for ITG3, basically, there was a team of us that were working on that game, and I was given, I think, like half of the double steps for the game, and I would step all of those. And then I was given like maybe a quarter to a third of all the single steps. And many of those steps since then have not survived. They've been re-stepped because people, didn't agree with whatever the steps were. But yeah, if ITG3 was properly released, I would have had major credits in that game.
Just 3, not Rebirth. I feel like
Rebirth is 3.
Oh, I thought it was 2 different mixes.
No. Rebirth is 3 because basically, as I'm sure many people know who are watching this, Into the Groove 3 had to basically be canceled because Konami came in and was like, too bad. Yeah. So what Rockstar did was they sent out the R21 patch for ITG2 that allowed you to put whatever songs you wanted on there, and with that, ITG3 Rebirth was ITG3.
Oh, okay.
It was. People might have added songs to that past that, but ITG3 Rebirth was ITG3. And I don't know who sent it out. Maybe Kyle did, because of, he was literally unlocking anything because whatever, he didn't care at that point. Well, I mean, he cared, but he was, trying to stick it to Konami. Yeah, that was what was in ITG3 was basically those steps. And like I said, there have been plenty of other, of songs that I stepped that were re-stepped, and there are also songs that are in there that actually have stood the test of time.
Okay.
And Dream to Nightmare is one of those. So Dream to Nightmare is a song that has been the same since it came out. Those are my steps that everyone's used or played. And I'm pretty proud of those. However, there's the new Disconnected that was in there in ITG3. Disconnected Hardcore? Yes. So Disconnected Hardcore, which was in ITG3, that was restepped because I made it egregiously hard. And I did it because I wanted the step count to be 911, because Disconnected is the phone. So I was like, it would be cool to do 911 as the end. So I did everything I could to put 911 steps into that song, which I did. But the version that people are playing now is not the same version because it's too hard.
Okay.
But I could talk about steps forever. In fact, we probably have to talk about DanceTrax because you were involved in that.
Well, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I was like, I wanted to talk about Digital Life, but it seems like more natural to talk about DanceTrax before we go on to Digital Life 2005. So, yeah, DanceTrax. I never really got a feel for like what it was supposed to look like physically. I was involved in the process. You and Deshaun were making the steps, and you guys asked me to come on to be
QA, basically.
QA, and like I was supposed to rate the steps. And I don't know if I came up with this myself. I think I came up with it myself. I had a really good system for like properly rating the steps.
Probably.
I don't remember what it was. I eventually, for a short period of time, you guys gave me the okay to bring somebody else on, and I brought on Julio, and I think he was rating the double steps.
That probably makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there was a few people, but Arc Owl, who was I don't know if I just knew who he was, or he was like notorious for like making steps.
Yes.
But he was also on that team.
Yes.
He kind of reminded me like the JSB of like Stepchart artists. Like,
yes.
People hated him, but he had a lot of steps. So it was all of us, but I don't really remember the specifics of like what the pad was supposed to look like, who was behind it.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a whole bunch about that. So DJ K, who was the guy who was kind of like in charge of the whole thing, he reached out to me because of the Stepchart stuff, Roulette, and also because I had clout as a figurehead or whatever. He was like, hey, I'm making this game with CN Lore. Charles, CN Lore, was one of the developers of Stepmania. And he was like, hey, I'm working on this thing with him. It's a new game. And instead of the pads being pressure pads, they would be laser pads that you would break the laser when you would put the foot in. And he had prototypes of that stuff. I think Charles actually had the prototypes of that stuff. So, like, they were going to basically do a new thing with Stepmania, basically the skin of it that would be for DanceTrax. But the pad would have been lasers, so that you would be breaking the laser, which would be much more sensitive than a pressure sensitive. There's a lot less chance of it being dirty and things like that. So that was really exciting for us. So yeah, he had a couple of step artists that he also brought on. One of them was like I think Penguin Man, who was like a mediocre step artist at best. And I think he also had Jamich as well be brought on. And Jamich was an incredible step artist. Very, very good. He might have also included Fubi. And Fubi was also a very incredible step artist as well for their own reasons. I'll get into that. I brought on Deshaun as well because I know he was a step artist and close friend of mine. And I'm trying to think, there was probably one or two. I remember Arc Owl being on there. And then I think there was a guy, LXRE, who was there. And then I think there was maybe there was one more person I'm forgetting. I'd have to look at I actually have all the songs still. And then he also hired music artists. So he hired Cam Blaster, who we will absolutely talk about for a minute, and DJ Ren, D. Mashura was there, I think, and a couple of other, I think, artists as well. So, you know, we had artists that were specific to the songs. We had step artists that were doing it. So we had a nice, solid team of people making music and stuff like that. Talking about the step artists for a minute. So Jamich was the guy who was basically doing all of the hard charts. Mm-hmm. If you had a hard chart, we basically threw it at Jamich. It was like, do it. So he was the person who was behind most of the future scopes that we had. So we had Future Scope, EXE, well actually, I think EXE I did because it was early. But then I gave him Virus and I gave him Next. So Future Scope, Virus, Future Scope, Next. And those are done, also the music's done by Cam Blaster. Cam Blaster should be a name that some people might be familiar with, because his tracks have always been incredible in the music game community. In fact, I think he's even in DDR at this point now. His tracks are so vibrant and dynamic and just overall musically interesting that just gives way to incredible steps. So when I gave Jamich Virus and Next, I told him, I said, you know, we want to continue with a motif here. So think about the motif for future scope, but I want Virus to look like disconnected, right? I don't want like normal streams. I want the body to like contort a little bit, like you're like it's a virus, like it's infected. So that's what I told him. I said, I want you to, you know, make it hard. Don't make it crazy hard, but make it hard, but also make it hard in a way that again is a disconnected kind of thing. But for Next, I told him, I said, there is no holds barred. Make it as hard as you fucking can. And there's parts at the end of Next that are these, and I told him, I said, I want drills. Put them in, and he was going back and forth between, like, this is a 400 BPM song. He was going back and forth between putting in 16th notes in there or 24th notes in there for 400 BPM. And I think he ended up just doing the 24ths because it was, again, egregious. But basically, we played around with the idea of doing 16ths in there because we wanted. My standpoint was, at this point in time, was people, like I kind of said earlier, are getting too close in the score realm, right? Everything is just too close. So I feel like at the time we needed to make more gaps in areas. So I wanted to make songs that were practically impassable, because that would constitute a difference in score for different people, right? So that what maybe one person could PA the first half of Next but not pass it. The second person had a lot of stamina but was really poor in the accuracy, right? And you would get that very significant difference in those two scores, making it a lot more rich of an experience, because it was, again, practically impossible to pass. That was like what I was trying to do, and I think ITG was kind of trying to do that also in some way, and people just kind of got their levels up in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that was Jamich, and then Fubi, which I want to also call out, because Fubi was incredible at speed changes. And I say that because there's a step chart for the least 333 seconds, which was from, I think, Drummania.
Okay.
And that song, like least 100 seconds, has BPM changes, but it has a lot more. And it's just very subtle ones. So it's a whole piano song, but it's just a... So he's BPM changing that whole fucking thing.
Oh, I didn't know the least 100 seconds had BPM changes on purpose. I thought it was just like somebody played it live and it was just difficult because of that.
Yeah. Well, the least 333 seconds is even more like hard to get right. And I have the step file that he did of it before I think I even knew of him. And that the steps for that are so well to the music that it's incredible. So Fubi was actually really good at like medium difficulty songs, but it was really a matter of like giving the step chart to Fubi to double check to make sure that the BPMs and the steps, the stops were properly put together.
Okay.
So we would give that to him for that, to like double check that stuff. And then like the rest of us were basically doing like more or less filler stuff. So, you know, like again, Deshaun and myself and the other folks were just like picking songs that we wanted to step and then doing all the steps for those. And then I was the lead on that, so I would take steps sometimes and re-architect them to make sure that they had a personality. Because that was like paramount to me, is that I still wanted to have that playing card feel where like I'm gonna pick this on you because it is completely different from this other thing.
Yeah.
And that was important. I think that's all I would talk about that. Actually, the one more thing I would say about it is that So eventually, because DanceTrax kind of failed, we hooked Cam Blaster up with Roxor to do 3 tracks. So that's where Disconnected Hardcore and Green the Nightmare came from, was when we basically showed Cam Blaster showed me Disconnected Hardcore. I said, this is incredible, let's show it to Kyle. Kyle was like, this is amazing, and he told me, he's like, can you step this? I said, I have steps for it already because it is so good. And that's how that partnership started over there.
My memory of DanceTrax was like late 2005 or 2006ish, and I don't really remember too many of the songs nowadays, but the song that like speaks to me was Tell Me a Story. Mm-hmm. I love that song, and I love the step charts. I don't know if Arc Owl was the one who did. He did all the tempo changes, and it stuttered. There was a lot of stuttering in the. He did. The step chart for that was it was a good step chart.
Yeah, Tell Me a Story is an interesting story, because if I remember correctly, I tried to step it first, and when I stepped it, I didn't do a good job. I couldn't hear what everyone else was hearing. And in fact, that was because I didn't have headphones. I would play out of my speakers. Mm-hmm. So the sound wasn't as good. So when I stepped it, and I think I sent it to the smaller group that we had at the time, I think Arcal had a lot to say about it. And I think I basically probably told him, I said, okay, fine, if you know so much better, you do it.
Yeah.
And he did it, and I was like, you know what? You're fucking right, dude. You're fucking right. You nailed this one. I will say I probably don't entirely agree with some of the placement of some of that stuff, but the way that it goes to the song, absolutely, he nailed it. Such a great work on that.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I don't really remember too much about it nowadays. I remember being upset because I remember one time somebody came over my house, and I'm just trying to be vague here, but like, I think this was a little bit after the project was on the decline, but it was still supposed to be kept on the hush. And so somebody was at my house, we were doing one of my get-togethers, and I had my Stepmania on the computer, and I had the DanceTrax folder. And then the next week, it was like all over New York. And I was the only I knew it couldn't have been Deshaun. Either you or Deshaun sent it to somebody, which was not true, or Julio sent it to somebody, which is also not true, or the most likely scenario was that at one of my get-togethers, somebody ripped it off the computer.
Yeah.
And I was like, I wasn't happy about that. I have an idea of how that happened, but
I have a feeling I know maybe who that would have been too. But yeah, talking about favorite songs, Epileptic Crisis was my favorite song. When I heard Epileptic Crisis, first off...
Like from the way it sounded?
Yeah. Well, also the steps as well. So like, when I first heard Epileptic Crisis, first off, I was huge into glitch hop. So that's like Fire Rhythm by Edit and all those folks.
Am I thinking of the right song? Yeah.
Fire Rhythm is the one that I did the video to.
Yeah, well, I know what Fire Rhythm is. I'm just like, Epileptic Crisis was like their version of Vertex, right? Like, it was really, really fast, right?
No. Well, maybe. It was, yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So yeah, Epileptic Crisis wasn't the fastest in our song because Next was there. Next was 400. Mm-hmm. But Epileptic Crisis was fast. Definitely a fast song. But actually, for most of it, it was only like maybe 260, and only at the end does it get it grows up. So first off, the song itself is so dynamic and ever-changing, and it itself keeps you on your toes. Like, you have no idea what beat is coming next, right? It's impossible unless you've heard it a couple of times. So that in and of itself makes it really interesting. I gave it to Jamich because he was the guy who was going to be doing all the hard stuff, and I told him, I said, look, clearly I need lots of BPM pauses in this, clearly. What I want you to know is I want you to make it hard, but I don't want you to make it future scope next hard, meaning that like it's egregious. I want it, when you look at the step chart, if you didn't see the BPM, I want it to look like a person was playing a 9-footer. Mm-hmm. Right? That's kind of what I wanted. I wanted you to see the step chart. I wanted to make sense. I didn't want it to be like, oh, it's a double step here, or your body's in the wrong spot here. I want it to like flow, but with those BPM changes and the stops, it was going to be exceptionally hard because you didn't know what was happening next.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did. He did a very, very good job at it. I did some edits to it eventually, but what he did to that was incredible. In fact, I believe he actually even worked with Can Blaster to make sure he had the BPMs correct. And at the end of that song, are you familiar with the song Steps particular?
I remember the assistic, but I don't remember. I thought it was like hard, like Vertex or something.
It's very hard because at the end, the end of the song is incredible. While there are stops at the end
yes.
has a stream.
And like 12th notes or 24th notes, right? Like
kind of, yeah. Basically, it's not, well, they're supposed to feel like 24th notes, but they looks like 8th notes. So basically, there's a whole stream of what looks like 8th notes. But because of the song and the way that it works, is that the speeds up and the slowdowns that happen in there, they turn into 16th notes and 24th notes and 8th notes and stuff like that. And we're speeding up and slowing it down with the song, but all the notes look exactly the same, making it really hard to, like, again, feel it out. And it is a masterpiece.
I remember this because it was like the end was like if the end, if you could picture, like it's like 12th notes, like Bernie's like da, 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 and then every measure was like speed up. You like da, 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 brr,
yes, yes,
yeah,
right, yeah. Well, I don't think the notes themselves were 12ths. I think they were all 8th notes, and it sounds like you're supposed to be going to 12th notes. But that, again, that's exactly what. Again, why it's such a masterpiece in terms of the song and the steps just mashing together.
Yeah.
The unfortunate reality is that that's been reset too, and the stuff that's flying around is not the original. I still have the original, which there's a very shoddy video of the original from my old camera that's around, I think. But you know, I really should. I would really love to record it, at least just the assistic for it, or the chart for it, because I'm very proud of what the team did there. In particular, it was just so great. And it's a shame that we never got that to really be out like we wanted it to be.
Yeah, that was exciting. It was exciting to think about. We're at around 2005, and in 2005 the Jacob Javits tournament is announced, and you work with Sammy, but this time things are a lot more put together. You spoke about it a little bit already, about 2005, 2006, but in terms of the tournament and like memorable moments and competition and freestyle, like what do you remember about Digital Life 2005?
Well, the reality of it is, for me, is that after 2004, all the digital lives after that are basically a blur. In terms of like blurring them together, it's hard for me to like remember if this is 2005 versus another one. So I'll talk about moments. Obviously, your win is a big moment. It was incredible to have MTV follow you for the entire thing to get to the win there. The win itself was incredible. It's great to have a lot of that recorded. I remember one of the years we had DDPD all do K-Set at the same time.
2005. Yeah.
5? Okay. Yeah. We had everyone do K-Set at the same time, which was a great show. And then, what else do I remember? I remember Osh's backflip in one of them. That was
2007, I believe.
I remember, oh my god, I remember the qualifier for, I think it was the last Digital Life, that had like, it was like a home version song, and everyone was getting sick of the song. It was like, oh my god, I'm For Real?
Okay.
I think it was I'm For Real. And there's a part in that song where there's like a slide, it was like, whee! Like that.
Yeah. And
we were all getting bored. And every time, like halfway through the whole thing, people were just like, doing that, that motion, So there's a video of us where I'm like, trying to, tell people to get in line or whatever. I think it was like Chris Beast was there, maybe somebody else, maybe Osh, and I'm like, hey, stop screwing around, get this thing over here, move this guy over here, and then the thing comes in. Okay, get back to work. And that was really, a moment that I remember. I remember the Maxim Girls.
Yeah, that was 2006. Or
Okay,
at least, yeah.
So the Maxim Girls. So I had someone from Maxim was like, "Hey, can we get the girls on the DDR machine?" I was like, "Yeah, of course. Why the hell not?" So we put them on the machine. I think we had them on like 3 times because we're like, "Fuck it, why the hell not?" Put Maxim Girls on there. There's a video of me dancing with them, I think, flying around somewhere. Jason Enos, I think, was at that one also because he was promoting the new DDRMAX. Melby was at one of them. And then one of the other things that I remember in particular was me coordinating the freestyle judges. So one of the things that I was looking for in particular was I wanted one person that knew DDR freestyle. So that would be one person. I wanted another person that I think just knew about DDR, was DDR player. But then I think I had one person who was not a DDR player at all and didn't know how to dance. And I had one person who wasn't a DDR player at all that did know how to dance. So those were always my criteria for the 4 people. I remember one year where I asked some friends of mine to be a part of the show for the judging, and we were taking a break because it was like lunchtime and they've been sitting there for hours, with the judging. And I said, "Okay, we're gonna take a break," and I told them, I said, "We're breaking at noon or 1 or whatever it was. I need you back here at 2." Or it was an hour, basically. But I need you back here at 2 because I'm starting at 2 o'clock. Okay? Okay, no problem, whatever, blah, blah. So they go off. Everyone's having lunch, having people play games or whatever. 2 o'clock hits, and I think I only have like 1 judge there, maybe 2. I think it's probably 1 judge. Then I'm waiting. Finally, it's like 15 minutes later. And I'm like, fuck it. You're good to judge now. Right out of the audience. I was like, you, come here. You're judging now. Just like that. And I remember the people coming back.
I was going to ask, did they ever come back?
Oh, yeah. No, they came back and they were furious. They're like, you told me to come here and, to do this thing, and now, you just let us go. And I'm like, yeah, I fucking told you to be here at 2 p.m., whatever the thing was. And I have a show to run. And if you're not here, I'm running the show without you. I'm sorry. And I tried to pay them money in my wallet to compensate them or whatever. They're like, we don't want your money. I'm like, good. I don't give a shit. I can't talk to you anymore. I got shit to do over here.
Yeah.
And that was that. Obviously, people felt some kind of way about changing judges in there, but that's the show must go on kind of thing, right? Because certainly for the people who are there trying to be at the event and enjoy themselves and have a fair tournament, absolutely, I want to try to do that. But at the end of the day, I have only a limited number of hours in the day to get this thing done.
Yeah.
And I know that we've had tournaments at the Javit Center that have ran over, not significantly over, but over. Like I remember, maybe I'll say a half hour over tops, that we've had to really butt up against the closing. But that's super important to me from an event organization standpoint, is that I like to run a tight ship, and most of my events have been on time.
Yeah.
And it's very important to me to stay on time.
How did you line Angel up with MTV for the 2006 Digital Life, where he I don't know if it was, they didn't follow him around, but he was on MTV for TRL, but that was the same year he won.
So it had nothing to do with Digital Life.
Okay.
I'm almost positive. What I think happened there was, again, it was just another, MTV reaches out to DDRFreak and we need to find people. So we had Angel and Yomna on that show. And I have a story about that. So I'm there as well at TRL with them. And we are put in a special green room. And I feel like there was one more person with us, but I don't remember who. But we were put in a special green room that was different from the rest of the people who were going to be in the audience. And I guess we're setting up or whatever. They're getting mic'd up because I'm not going to be in the thing. and we go on set, and I remember that they like are in the spotlight, and I remember someone telling me, hey, where do you want to sit? And I said, oh, I don't know, I guess I'll just be back here behind the camera. But then the other person that I was with, and it might have been Triforce.
Oh, God.
It might have been Triforce, but the other person that I was with was like, no, let's go ahead and sit in the audience. So it's like, all right, fine, fuck it, I'll sit in the audience, I suppose, you know. So I'm holding.
Why was Triforce there?
Because it was a gaming segment or whatever. And Triforce and I knew each other as well from other stuff. He recognized that DDR was like up and coming. In fact, I think he was trying to recruit people. Right?
He was, yeah.
So I was holding Angel's stuff for him to play, and I think I was even holding Yomna's stuff too. But I was holding his stuff for him to play. So then they play. Angel comes after the commercial break. He comes back over to me to grab his stuff. It includes like his phone and stuff. And security looks at me and is like, hey, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean, what am I doing? I'm giving him back his stuff. He goes, you're not supposed to have a phone in here. I said, oh no, I'm not an audience member, I'm with them. And there's like a whole misunderstanding. So they're like, look, either you give me that stuff or you leave. And I'm like, well, I don't know where you're gonna take my stuff, and I don't give a shit about the show any longer now that my shit is done, so I'm gonna fucking leave. Goodbye. And I think actually maybe the other person that I was with was probably like a agent or something like that or the mediator for this. Because after the show, I'm waiting outside in the hallway, and after the show, that person comes up and says, what the hell is your problem? I said, what do you mean, what's my problem? And I told them what happened. And they were like disappointed. And I was like, I don't give a shit if you were disappointed or not. That was bullshit, right? No one told me anything about putting phones in lockers or anything like that, right? We were talent there, and all of a sudden I wasn't talent any longer. And that's fucked up. So I'm glad I left. Sorry. So that's what happened backstage in that particular moment was like, you know, again, you know, a misunderstanding, but you know, I didn't have a good experience with that personally, but Angel had a great experience. Yom had a good experience with that. It was another, you know, opportunity for us to put DDR on the screen.
Yeah, I don't remember Angel talking about that at all. That's
no,
crazy.
he probably barely would have remembered it because it wasn't like a traumatic thing for him. It was like a good thing, right? Because he just, I think either I kept his stuff outside. You know, it was just like no big deal, I guess, because he knew I had it, but I wasn't about to have some rando take my stuff.
Yeah. So like around this time, I think we all kind of stopped playing DDR more or less together. I don't know if it was just because Extreme was dying or Supernova just kind of didn't land well.
Yeah.
But like we all stayed friends, we kept in touch. I know that you and Angel and Andre and Ash tried to do a dance group called Kings of All Trades.
Yep.
I always thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fun.
You guys had a YouTube channel for a while, right?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, some stuff still up there. You can find it. It's out there.
But we all kept in touch. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Talk about getting on the set of the music video Mindless Self-Indulgence, Never Wanted to Dance. Because it was me, you, Marty, Ash, right? And a guy that they worked with at Dave & Buster's, and the other guy from Empire. I can't remember his name.
Yeah. Right. So that was another, hey, DDRFreak, we got something going on. Basically, I was tasked with finding people to play the game. I didn't realize that they really actually would have been better off with dancers than DDR people, but I'm glad that there were DDR people there to do things. So luckily, like you kind of mentioned, there was a whole bunch of people that we found that were available. So yourself, Ash, Marty was available. And then there was a couple DDR people. Dave and Buster's people that were available. So like Keo was available, and who's the guy with the tongue in the video. And then the other guy from Empire, I don't remember his name. And then Tiffany, who's the blonde girl that danced with Osh. Was also a person who was working at Dave & Buster's that I asked. Because she was also a dancer. I'm like, perfect. But then I was like, we didn't have enough girls. We needed like girl presence. So I was talking with the producers and I was like, hey, I'm having difficulty finding people. What do you think? I said, well, we can give you the casting list for the rest of the people that we're going to be filling out the space. And you could start calling some people up. I said, okay. So I reached out to some people. I found 2 girls. And I asked them, hey, are you able to dance? Have you heard of DDR? Stuff like that. And that's basically how I found those 2 people. I believe the person who was supposed to be Marty's partner couldn't make it. I want to say that was like Random James from the fighting game community. I want to say he wasn't able to make it like last minute, so we ended up cutting Marty, unfortunately, so he wasn't featured. So we ended up having only 4 groups.
But he was in the background though, right?
No. He wasn't in the background because we didn't start shooting until late, and he was just literally waiting around all day and was like, screw it.
Oh, okay.
It was just waiting too long.
So I remember him being there.
He was there. Yeah, he was 100% there. So we got there, dinner time or so, I guess?
The early evening.
Yeah, because the whole shoot was overnight. And we got there early because we needed to choreograph stuff, and I wasn't about to try to choreograph 4 different things. So I basically told everybody, your group, your group, your group, your group, figure it out. Figure something out. Here's the track, figure it out. And that's what everybody did. Everybody had their own kind of like style feeling that they were going to go for. We shot it throughout the whole night. It was really fun. Overall, it was fun being talent, being able to like have the spotlight on us and do our routines a couple of times. The ending shot where we're all like running around. Osh had some really great moments in there. Keo had some good moments in there too that really stood out. But that was really fun. And again, the whole thing was just us. Someone reaching out to DDRFreak and being like, hey, I think it was DDRFreak. I mean, it might have been at the point now that I was a person that people would contact and they would just go out to me, maybe. But I still think it was probably more DDR focused or DDR based, DDRFreak based than me. But I also felt really good about that, having DDR mainstream with real players.
Yeah.
Right? That felt really good. Because they were doing an okay job with like showing how you really could play DDR. Well, yes, the steps on the screen weren't entirely accurate. Yes, definitely, but at least the movements, all of the movements were more or less DDR accurate.
Yeah, for our routine, we put Afro Nova in it.
Yep.
The side thing, that was fun.
Yep.
I don't know if we did a bar hop in our routine, but one of the groups did a bar hop, and
I think Osh did.
I did like a Y kick, and it was that was a great time. I don't know if I told you, I may have told you this, but like within 20 minutes of me getting there, I pulled a muscle in my back. So the rest of the night, I was just fighting through the pain of like,
oh my god.
But I was like, I don't want to leave, but like I had a really bad muscle pull in my back. Yeah, that was fun, man. Yeah. All right, so wrapping this interview up.
Wait, before you wrap it up.
All right.
I want to talk about one more piece of media because Sean brought it up in his, and I linked to it in his video. And you guys.
Oh, the Jimin. Okay.
Yes, the Jimin video. So the reason I want to talk about this is this is very much at the point where I'm seeing more DDR in the media, and I'm being very upset about the way it's being portrayed. So this producer who's producing a music video is looking for, have this DDR kind of motif and wants to produce a music video for it. and I'm working with him because, again, I'm trying to find casting for it, and it happens to be Jimin in this particular case. And actually, in the video, you'll see Sarah Steed in the video also.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's in there too. Very moment, I think, in like the tournament that's at the end. But there's a couple of, I think, DDR people that are actually end up in there. But yeah, Jimin's the main cast member. So, but I told him, the producer, I think his name is Harry, I told Harry, I said, look, it is paramount to me that DDR is not made fun of. In fact, I think this is around the time where that movie came out that was like making fun of DDR. I forget the name of it.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, you know, people saw that movie and it felt like a laughing stock of our community. And I don't want to continue that. So it is paramount to me that we portray DDR appropriately. I don't want this to be some sort of like, haha, he's playing DDR or whatever. I want this to be, you know, portrayed better.
Yeah.
Right? Do whatever you want to do past that, but just know that, you know, how disappointed I'll be and how the community will also be disappointed in the event that you do us wrong. Right? Yeah. I basically put that on it. And I'll say the result of that, I'll say, is pretty good.
I don't think I've ever actually seen that movie. Watched it.
I didn't see the movie either. No,
I'm talking about like Jimin. Was it?
Jimin's a music video.
Oh, I thought it was a movie.
No, it's not a movie. It's a music video. No, the movie that I'm talking about, I forget what the name of the movie was. The FP.
The FP. Yeah.
The FP.
I didn't see that.
Yeah,
I already knew by the cover. It was
the FP was that thing, and it was just horrible that got publicity. But no, Jimin's music videos. The music videos. The title music of the track is called Dragonfly. It's by VOIA, I think is the artist's name. And we had a release party too, actually, downtown. There was a whole bunch of us showed up for. Yeah, it was cool. But yeah, music video, and I think I remember telling the producer at the end of the music video, I congratulated. I said, I think you did a pretty good job here.
Okay.
And he thanked me for it, and I thanked him. But yeah, it's a contrived love story, basically, where, like, you know, Jimin and this woman are in this relationship, but it's like not working out, and he's like, I think, going off in this tangent where he's, you know, trying to find himself, and he's playing DDR through that way. And I guess he gets better in the training and stuff like that, and eventually he's in this big tournament, and I think he ends up facing off against the woman that he's been seeing or dreaming about or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's the story behind the whole thing. And contrived love story, of course, whatever. But I think, you know, the training part of it is cool. Obviously, Jimin being a very good DDR player, you know, helped out a lot, and being a dancer, he was known for his windmills back in the day.
Yep.
So, you know, all of that really helped, you know, in the presentation of that, which made it a fine piece of media for us.
I always said that, like, it meant a lot to me for people to have their closure, and I feel like Stefan got that, and Deshaun got that, I got that. I didn't know Sean won the couple tournaments he did, but it seemed like he kind of got that too, because he won an NYDS tournament against somebody that it seemed like it meant a lot to him. But I feel like that was good for Jimin.
Yeah.
Like, for somebody who traversed so many different mini eras in New York City DDR, Sean, Deshaun, Stefan, and me, like, he was around for the whole thing. And I think between Sean and Deshaun, like, they wound up kind of coming out on top with that, and then Stefan was just like, he was like a train.
Yep.
And then I was playing all the option stuff. So Jimin, it was hard. It's hard to stick around for that long, you know, in terms of that.
Well, you want to talk about sticking along, that I think hasn't got that closing moment is Big Matt.
Yeah.
He's been around longer than I think almost any of us.
Yep.
Right? Still playing to this day, as far as I know. And as far as I know, hasn't really gotten his moment.
And I'm going to ask Matt about that, because I am going to interview him soon. Yeah. And I don't know how he feels about that, but I always said that, like, he should have took 2006 Digital Life. It was Renatalis, who also I think still plays.
Yeah, Renatalis,
pretty good DDR player.
Yeah.
And I think
he's doing great things out by him. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did he run that big $10,000 tournament? Was that him? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But like he kind of, I didn't know who he was back then. I don't think so. And then I was like, Matt got this. Like Matt, he was playing options. I think Supernova options was 2006, and he didn't win. And maybe this doesn't mean anything to Matt, but it would have been. I felt like it would have been nice for him to get some kind of closure like that. You know?
100%.
All right, let me ask you a few questions.
Okay.
3 songs that describe Fifth Mix.
For me, Electro-Tuned, obviously. The Cube.
The Cube. Nobody plays that song.
I
really?
love The Cube.
Really?
Cube is a fucking great song. It's such a great song.
It doesn't have to be Fifth Mix exclusive. It could be like a Fourth Mix song that was on.
Okay, but I'm just that's stuff that's coming to my
Cube?
mind.
Oh,
The Cube.
man.
I love The Cube.
I think I must have played that song like twice.
Yeah, I love The Cube. And music.
Oh, that's a good song. That is a good song.
Music. I mean, admittedly, anything from Tune Unlimited, but I know there's only 3. But that Tune Unlimited shit is also really fucking good. But yeah, those will be my 3.
Okay, I can get behind that. I can't get behind The Cube, man. Like The Cube.
I love The Cube, man. The steps in The Cube are really fun. It's simple. It's like a 7-footer, but it's fun.
That song reminds me of an audio version of the game Portal. It's just like abstract and like. All right, 3 songs that describe 7th Mix, Max 2.
Max 2. Spin the disc. I'll say. You know what? I'll say. I know this is not Max 2 specific, but Trip Machine Climax. Because I know it's an older song. Clearly, it's like 4th plus, right? And then Stay. And I say Stay because of Broadway City. Mm-hmm. Did you talk about that story yet? About the Stay story with Broadway City?
No.
Really? Okay. So there was a tournament that I think I was running, maybe, at Broadway City. It was 7 Mix tournament, absolutely. And at this tournament, I don't remember if I was running it or not. I was definitely going to the tournament. I feel like I was running it. And the techs, Wotek and Andre, were like, hey, we want to project the screen to the large projector above the machine so everybody could see instead of the little screen. I was like, okay, cool. So they're hacking in the middle, in the beginning, back of the machine, trying to make it work or whatever. And it works. I was like, okay, cool. And we start the tech tournament. And it had a pretty significant turnout. But we're in a match, and I want to say it was like maybe halfway through the tournament, maybe even farther than that. But it's the third song for this particular match. I forget who's playing, and it's Stay. The random song was Stay.
Was this Stay by Tess or
Tess.
the other one? Okay.
Yeah, Stay by Tess. And basically the song is playing, and it finally gets to the hook, and it goes Stay with. And the machine goes out. I don't think the power goes out. The machine goes out.
Yeah.
And the techs couldn't get it back up, so the tournament was canceled. That was it.
I don't remember that.
We all went home.
Oh, that must have been the second Broadway City tournament. If it was
potentially,
oh, wow.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it wasn't. So there was a tournament that I was there, Broadway City, where I did Superstar Challenge, Megamix, whatever. I freestyled that. Not the same tournament.
That was the Extreme one that Stefan won.
Yeah. So there was another tournament. Probably must have been before Extreme, obviously before Extreme, because it was Max 2, because Stay was on it. That happened. That didn't happen.
Oh.
So that was what I'll call their. Yeah.
Not drifting away.
No. Not drifting away.
That was just a you thing, not a Max 2.
No, because what I'll say about drifting away is I did it and it was done.
Okay, fair enough.
That's what I'll say.
3 DDR Extreme songs.
Extreme. God, what the hell is Extreme?
You Stealth Kiss Me All Night Long.
Yeah, Kiss Me All Night Long. Okay, we'll put that in. Because I'm honestly blanking. Kiss Me All Night Long, sure.
It could be an old song that kind of made a comeback, because I know like Rhythm and Police was in Extreme, so everybody was playing Rhythm and Police. And
yeah, I mean, I'm actually drawing a blank in Extreme, and honestly, I'd have to like look at the song list again and be like, oh, boom, boom, boom.
I feel like I would feel obligated to say Cartoon Heroes just because of.
Had that in my mind because it's ingrained.
Yeah.
Everyone playing that stupid thing. But I never played it, so I was like, I didn't want to mention it. I'm trying to think.
I feel like y'all, a lot of tournament organizers, I don't know if this was just a you thing or this is just something in my memory. Y'all would do a freestyle tournament, and at the end of the freestyle tournament, you guys would make
D2R.
Yeah, D2R.
D2R. Yeah, there's a video of D2R at 8 of the break. So you know what? Yes, put D2R in that one because that's definitely a memory there. And then, oh man, what would I say about Extreme? You know what? Love Mix.
Okay.
I'll say Love Mix because that's. I don't think I was spinning until Extreme on Love Mix.
Yeah.
I think that's right. So yeah, I'll put those three.
That was another one of those songs that was like out for a while, but because it was an Extreme, people would pick it.
Well, they had that whole only course, the whole trip only course.
All
right.
right.
All 5 of them in there.
Yeah.
And I actually used to like playing that one because I could do all the songs. I love the ending in Climax. I love Climax. Trip Machine Climax. It needs to be. Yeah, I've said that already. In what, 7th, 5th?
I think you said it for 5th.
One of them.
I believe. Yeah.
One of them. Yeah. Actually, no, I think I probably said it in 7th. But like I love Trip Machine Climax. It's probably the hardest song that I will do regularly.
I think I know the answer for one of these already, but top 2 of your freestyles, like your freestyles.
I mean, the obvious answers are Drifting Away and Wild Rush.
Drifting Away, Wild Rush.
I will throw an Electro Tune in there because it was my first. But the top 2 are... Electro Tune is not anything to be interested in, I don't think. I think Wild Rush and Drifting Away are more entertaining, for sure.
Couple of your favorite freestyles that are not yours.
Okay. Was it Share My Love by Jing?
That's a good freestyle.
I think that's like the one that comes to mind immediately. Is just, I mean, literally anything that Jing's done is like incredible. That comes to mind. What else was good? I haven't seen a lot of freestyles in a while.
So, like anything that Angel's done. Angel was up there, but maybe that was afterwards, or.
I mean, the hard thing is that what stands out to me is when it is something that I haven't seen before. So, like, Stefan's Dead End.
That was a cool, yeah.
I love Stefan's Dead End. The one at CSA where he competed.
Yeah.
I love that one. That one was because again, it's. I was getting to the fact of like, it's hard for me to pick Angel or you, in this area because I feel like they're similar. In the style, which makes sense, right? Because you're going on the stage and you're dancing your style, which is fine. And it's the same actually for Jing as well. Jing has a style, and basically when he goes on the stage, he does it. So like all that stuff is there. But I think the thing about Jing was similar to mine, where he would have some thing that would suck you in about the track. Where, and again, it's nothing against you or Angel or anything like that. I don't have a memory of you folks having something that's like the definitive in the track. Remember this part that you did in the song. It was just you dancing to the song and doing well on dancing to the song.
Yeah.
But it didn't have that spark that again, like, you know, the dead end thing that Stefan does that like that part.
Ties his shirt up. And
that part of it. I feel a certain way about, and then the Jing one, Share My Love, I only say because he's had other ones that was like, oh my god, Long Train Running, I think he did with the fish wheel. That is also comes up to my mind. So those two, and then I'm trying to think if there's anything else that like. I mean, when you guys do K-Set, I think is another thing. or Do Me, either one of those, because again, it's unique, something that you don't expect.
Julio made mention of somebody from California called Kid Zero, but I don't know who that is. Okay.
I don't remember him. Yeah. I've heard of the name, but I don't remember any of his stuff. But then also, I mean, talking about stuff Synchronized Love from 8 Ball is a classic. That Asian guy that did Healing Vision and Era, as a person that I looked up to back then. Of course, those two are very good as well.
Yeah. What are a couple of your best overall DDR memories? Could be playing, or could be like something kind of related to DDR.
I got one that is a great story. I mean, everything I've talked about obviously is great memories, but I haven't brought this up, and I was hoping that I would have an opportunity to do so. So yeah, I'm glad you let me have an opportunity to talk about this particular thing, because it is a core memory of mine that happened that wasn't specifically me, but maybe I was running this tournament. It was at Green Acres Mall, and as we know, Green Acres Mall has a notoriously shitty pad, but we were running a tournament on it anyway. And what we decided for this particular tournament was that because only one side was good on this machine, that we would run the entire tournament on one side of the machine. Okay. This happened to also be a tournament where if you failed the song, you're immediately disqualified. Okay, so those two things. That meant that a person, when you would have the match, there would be one person who would be playing and another person who would be waiting to play. Okay, so you'd have one person who would be playing, they would pick their song, they would play it, we would record a score. The other person who's waiting would choose a song that was like, okay, they had to play that, they play that, record the song, record the score, and then random was whatever random it was, and then that would be the set. We would duplicate that whole thing for the next person. So that would be what's going on. This particular match was Alfonso versus Jimin, and Alfonso was up first. Okay. And Alfonso picks Paranoia Rebirth.
On Jimin.
On Jimin. Now, in Alfonso's, profile, he had a signature in DDRFreak, and in the signature, it actually read that I always get like a B, I think it was, or maybe it was an A on Paranoia Rebirth. Yeah. So like he was clearly like working on the song, but it was not like at a point where Jimin has worked on the song.
Right.
So he picks Paranoia Rebirth, and we're all like looking around going, is this for real? And he gets, I don't know, a B or some shit like that, so whatever. Now, Jimin is playing Tekken. Okay, he's on the Tekken machine, he's playing Tekken, and maybe Tekken 4 or whatever it was, maybe 5. Probably Tekken 4. So he's playing Tekken. And I go over to Jimin and I said, so you're against Alfonso right now, what song should he play? And he goes, So Deep. Alfonso plays So Deep. He fails. He's disqualified. Jimin won his match without even playing DDR. Never forget it. Never forget it. So that's a core memory of mine about winning a DDR match while playing Tekken, which was just the series of events that occurred.
That seems like it's very fitting because Alfonso Nilo, he was like not a troll, he was kind of a silly guy. Like he just did stuff like that all the time, and like he would lose a match to somebody who didn't even have to play. Of course. Yeah. All right, man. Well, I just want to say thanks for coming up and doing this interview.
Thanks for having me.
This means a lot to me, and I think that for me to do something like this where I'm interviewing people and I'm trying to tell the story of the beginning of New York City DDR, I couldn't do that without having you come up and talk about it. So I do really appreciate that. And as I'm doing these interviews, I'm realizing I don't know if this is the right term, but I feel like old world DDR and new world DDR keeps popping up in my head recently. And I feel like that describes, I don't know if it's a mix of In the Groove 2 and Supernova that is that's what divides old world and new world.
Yeah.
And it seems like there's been a continuity of Spencer all the way up until DDR Ace and what they're doing now. But that break is really what I'm trying to portray.
Yeah.
Old world DDR, and I think you're a big part of that. So I hope people watch this video and they can appreciate it. I know people like Deshaun will go through this video and be able to like identify with a lot of that stuff. So thanks a lot.
Yeah. Speaking of World, the new DDR World I played last week for the first time.
Oh, you did play it?
Holy shit! What a piece of crap.
A lot of people were saying they didn't like the UI.
Bingo. Yeah. So it's weird to me. I know we're trying to wrap up, but it's very weird to me that a person who's been playing DDR for over 20 years goes on a new machine and doesn't know how to play it. Right? And think about this too, because like we're not at a point right now that people are discovering DDR. We're way past that.
Yeah.
So what I heard the feedback was in terms of the UI, specifically the song selection, is that they were trying to make it so it was easier for people to select songs. But it's the entire reverse of that, where people who know how to select songs can't select songs. Like I was like, why are there only 12 songs in this mix? Right? It feels like 6 mix again. And I had to have someone tell me how to get the new songs on there. And for folks that are watching, there's some filter menu that you have to like check on the songs that you want to see, which is ridiculous, right? In terms of a person who wants to like who's been playing for a while or who wants to play, like there's been nothing wrong with having folders of a song list and having the popular ones available first, right? There's nothing wrong with that. Have everything available. It's terrible UI. It's like, you know, how much worse can Konami be at making this game for us? It's crazy.
Yeah, it's weird that they do stuff like that, because I'm like, why make it at all? But if you're gonna make it, then make it so that it's accessible and it's easy to do. And that's, you played at round 1?
Yeah.
Because I don't even think Dave and Buster's is getting this.
No, I don't think so either. The reason I went to the round 1 is because, well, the Dave and Buster's is close to me, but that machine, the pads don't even work. The whole thing just like is unresponsive last time I was there. So I went to round 1 to play, and I was like surprised because I was like, where are these songs? I was like, wow, came here to play. But eventually I learned how to do it, but it's dumb because I feel bad for anyone who, you know, was older that wants to play, that goes to that mix and goes, where are my songs? You know, it's poor.
That's unfortunate. Well, anyway, like, thanks for coming on and doing this. I would definitely consider you like one of the most influential people in the early stages of DDR, and top freestyler for sure. And if anybody who's watching, like, you know, let me know or let Don know in the comment section if you remember anything or we missed anything or you have opinions on anything, and just stick around and there'll be more interviews. So.